Chapter 789. During this period of time, the upper three heavens appeared to be peaceful on the surface. But in the dark, a storm was brewing. The moment Li Xiongtu returned to the clan, he instantly became the treasurer of the clan. Even Li Xiongtu himself didn't expect that he would receive such exceptional treatment the moment he arrived. From the looks of it, he was being groomed as the future core of the Li clan. Li Xiongtu was at a loss. After returning to the clan, he thought that he would be content with a caretaker arranging a quiet place for him. He would slowly work on the rest in the future. Who would have thought that after he returned, 3 generations of elders would come out of seclusion at the same time? Although Li Xiongtu was calm, he was also somewhat flattered. But there was one thing that made Li Xiongtu very unhappy, because the attitude of the elders, including the clan master, towards him was a little strange. How should he put it? It wasn't cordial, nor was it distant. It wasn't even rejection. It was a kind of deliberate closeness. Moreover, some of them were more or less cautious. Li Xiongtu couldn't understand. What's going on? I'm just a small pawn who just came up from the upper three heavens. Any one of you can crush me to death with just a finger. Why are you still like this? Moreover, people often asked him some inexplicable questions. The most common thing they had in common was that they were all very interested in their friends. Li Xiongtu was extremely depressed. For so many years, he was obsessed with martial arts. Other than admiration for Gu Duxing and Dong Wuxiang, where did he have any other friends? Later on, when he was asked more and more, Li Xiongtu wasn't the kind of person who would twist his words. He just directly said, I don't have any friends, much less any brothers who have gone through life and death together. But he didn't expect that after he said this, many people's attitudes became even more ambiguous. They actually nodded repeatedly. Yes, this is how it should be. I think so too. You don't have any friends, no brothers, ha ha ha. It's how it should be, how it should be. Li Xiongtu couldn't figure it out. He asked them why they asked this, but none of them said anything. They just smiled and looked at him meaningfully. The most ridiculous thing was that after an elder saw him, he said, As expected of, your aptitude is indeed not bad. As expected of what? Li Xiongtu couldn't figure it out no matter how hard he racked his brains. Then he would occasionally overhear other people talking about him, and it would be in bits and pieces. Li Xiongtu, this little one is really, haha, he's really scheming. Look at that silly look. Those who don't know would really think that he's not. Haha. Li Xiongtu thought hard for a long time, but he became more and more confused. After that, everyone urged him to practice martial arts without holding anything back. As for techniques and resources, he had everything he needed. Li Xiongtu secretly observed and realized that the direct descendants of the other families only received 30 purple crystals per month. This was already an astronomical figure. Even Li Batian only received 50 purple crystals. Li Ju, who was the first in the family, received 80 purple crystals per month. As for himself, he actually received a terrifying 200 purple crystals per month. It was almost twice as much as Li Ju. Furthermore, there was actually no one who raised any objections. Even Li Ju, who was known as the number one among the younger generation, was a person who was neither servile nor overbearing when facing the old ancestor. He was even more so when facing those of the same generation. But when he saw him, he still greeted him with a smile. There wasn't much enthusiasm, but there was definitely no enmity. There was even a faint desire to mend relations. Even someone like Li Xiongtu was a little scared in the end. What's going on? Thus, he started his life in the upper three heavens with such confusion. It had to be said that Li Xiongtu's aptitude was indeed extraordinary, and he had the full support of the huge family behind him. Once he calmed down and cultivated, his cultivation improved by leaps and bounds. The faster his cultivation improved, the more gratified everyone was. They weren't surprised at all. Generally speaking, it was considered fast for an emperor to break through one stage in 3 years. If someone broke through one stage in a year, they would be considered a genius, and would definitely cause a commotion. But Li Xiongtu relied on a mysterious force in his body to increase his cultivation by one stage in half a month. This should have been something that would shock the world. But the elders of the Li clan all acted as if it was a matter of course. This made Li Xiongtu even more confused. What's going on? Damn it, are they trying to suffocate me? However, the number of people who came to chat with him had decreased recently. Furthermore, everyone was in a hurry, with a heavy expression on their faces. It seemed that something big had happened. He could vaguely hear that the conflicts between the various major clans and the Li clan were gradually increasing. When Li Xiongtu asked, everyone smiled and told him not to worry. He would definitely be fine. Damn it, what am I worried about? What can happen to me? Zhuge clan. Fifth small courtyard. Diwu Qingru sat in the pavilion in the courtyard, holding a book in his hand and looking very relaxed. There was a cup of tea in front of him, and the fragrance of the tea rose in spirals. A gentle breeze blew, and the bamboo forest swayed and rustled. The whole courtyard was quiet and peaceful. A person appeared behind him silently. For a long time, Diwu Qingru didn't seem to have noticed at all. He focused on reading and smiled lightly. This person finally couldn't hold it in and said, so carefree. Diwu Qingru turned around and smiled. So it's seventh brother. The person who came was the seventh brother of the Zhuge clan's generation, Zhuge Yunwu. He was also the one in the Zhuge clan who was most compatible with Diwu Qingru. Actually, just from the fact that he was compatible with Diwu Qingru, it could be seen that this Zhuge Yunwu was definitely not a simple person. If he was an ordinary person, why would Diwu Qingru be compatible with him? Qingru, the big clans are already in turmoil now, and war is about to reach the heavenly layer. But you're still so carefree here. Zhuge Yunwu was dressed in plain clothes, and his expression was calm. There was a smile on his face, and his eyes were long and slender. His face was white and beardless, and he looked like a person who didn't care about the affairs of the world at all. Even though he was talking about the situation in the heavenly layer, he was still calm and casual, like a breeze brushing past one's ears. Even if the war reaches the heavenly layer, as long as seventh brother is here, nothing will happen to the Zhuge clan. Diwu Qingru smiled and said, but seventh brother must have something to tell me this time. I'm all ears. Yes, you're right. Seventh brother wouldn't visit without a reason. Since he's here at your house of wisdom, there must be something he can't decide. Zhuge Yunwu smiled gently. Seventh brother, please tell me. Diwu Qingru finally closed the book and raised his head to look at Zhuge Yunwu. Let's be frank. Qingru, I know you're capable. I'm here to ask you an answer. Zhuge Yunwu said directly. The answer? Diwu Qingru seemed to have guessed what Zhuge Yunwu wanted to ask. Before Zhuge Yunwu could ask, he frowned. Zhuge Yunwu sat down in front of him and said softly, now, the Zhuge clan is planning to gradually increase the friction between the Li clan and us. We're trying to cause a conflict and reveal that layer. Diwu Qingru replied with an O. Zhuge Yunwu took in a breath and said, Qingru, you must know that this is because the Tribulation Sword Master. Diwu Qingru frowned and didn't say anything. Zhuge Yunwu looked at Diwu Qingru's frowning brows, and his eyes flashed. He said quietly, the Li clan has recently received Li Xiongtu from the upper three heavens. Qingru, what do you think of this person? Zhuge Yunwu's eyes were like stars. He stared at Diwu Qingru's face and said, Li Xiongtu, 24 years old. He's from the Li clan of the upper three heavens. His aptitude has been outstanding since he was young. He had a foundation when he was 3 years old. He broke through to martial warrior when he was 5 years old. He broke through to martial master when he was 9 years old. He became a martial great when he was 13 years old. He became a martial revered when he was 17 years old. He became a martial king when he was 10 years old. However, before he came to the upper three heavens, during the battle at the Lake of Despair, he was a peak second stage martial emperor when he was 24 years old. Moreover, his combat power was enough to defeat a normal fourth stage martial emperor. He could even be on par with a fifth stage martial emperor. Diwu Qingru grunted and said, are you saying that he has directly advanced from a fourth grade king level expert to a second grade emperor level expert within a year? Or perhaps less than a year? Suspicious? Zhuge Yunwu nodded and looked at him. He was quiet for a while, as if he was giving him time to think. Then he said, recently, there was news that ever since Li Xiongtu came to the upper three heavens, He had improved to a third-stage martial emperor within half a month. Diwu Qingrou's eyebrows moved. Is there such a thing? Zhuge Yunwu smiled faintly. This speed is very fast, right? Diwu Qingrou didn't say anything and started to think. Also, before he came to the upper three heavens, someone gave him an elixir. At that time, he was seriously injured and on the verge of death. However, after he took it, he immediately recovered. Zhuge Yunwu emphasized. And that person's move was, what harm is there in slaughtering the entire world? That elixir is a heavy elixir. Other than the heavy elixir, there's no other elixir in the world that can have such an effect. When Zhuge Yunwu said the words heavy pill, he obviously emphasized it again. Moreover, there was a hint of excitement in his voice. Diwu Qingrou smiled faintly and didn't comment. At that time, the people from the big clans and the law enforcement officers walked together and supervised each other. They almost never left each other. That person didn't seem to find a chance. So when he was about to enter the upper three heavens, he took the risk to give the elixir. After exchanging a blow, he immediately disappeared. Even the law enforcement officers couldn't catch up with him. Zhuge Yunwu said softly, there's only one suspicious point in this matter. That is, there was a strange phenomenon in the sky. If that person was really the master of the Calamity Sword, he should have appeared at the place where the strange phenomenon appeared, and not to give the elixir. However, according to the description of the power of that move, and the way it changed, the few elders of the big clans all agreed that it was the fiercest move of the Calamity Sword Master's Calamity Sword technique. What harm is there in slaughtering the entire world? And there's absolutely no mistake. Chapter 790. Part 7 Chapter 10, Why Practice Saber? Part 7 Chapter 10, Why Practice Saber? Diwu Qingrou frowned and thought hard. If this person is not the same person as him, then in this world, I am not just a worthy opponent. Although the indirect means are clever, the direct conspiracy is even more terrible, and it makes me feel threatened and scared. Is it or not? Diwu Qingrou was puzzled. He stood in front of the map for the whole morning. His small courtyard belonged to the Diwu clan. Outside of the Zhuge clan, the Diwu clan was attached to the Zhuge clan. After so many years, they finally got such a small place in the last few hundred years. And Diwu Qingrou was a direct descendant of the Diwu clan, so he owned this small courtyard. Unlike the others, there was not a single servant in this small courtyard. There were no maids or servants. This place belonged to Diwu Qingrou himself. Diwu Qingrou did not dare to trust anyone here. So, although he stood in a daze for the whole morning, no one disturbed him. After a long time, he trembled and woke up. He said quietly, although this is inexplicable, I believe there must be a reason. It's just that I didn't think of it. Everyone thinks that the Tribulation Sword Master is in the upper three heavens and can't come up. That's why everyone's defenses aren't really as tight as before. Diwu Qingrou smiled and stepped back. He stretched out his finger and pointed at the southeast direction of the map. His eyes were serious and meaningful. The Xiao clan's territory. The Chu clan is here. The Chu clan is just a small clan. Diwu Qingrou looked at the grain-sized place on the map and murmured, flat mountain ridge. Diwu Qingrou looked at the grain-sized place quietly. His eyes were a little strange. After a long time he murmured, before the double heavens entrance closed, the last batch of people who entered was the young master of the Chu clan. He took his son. I heard that his son had been missing for many years. This time he was finally found. He tilted his head and laughed. He murmured, I heard that the name of the young master of the Chu clan is Chu Yang. It's really interesting. He looked more confused. According to the vision of heaven and earth, the Tribulation Sword Master triggered the vision when he was comprehending the tribulation. And that place is still very far from the entrance of the upper three heavens. Since he's comprehending the tribulation, he can't appear in front of the world. Moreover, the Chu clan's eldest young master wouldn't have pulled over a person who was in the middle of comprehending, and then immediately returned to the upper three heavens. This is clearly too late. If Master Tribulation Sword is in the upper three heavens, and Chu Yang is in the upper three heavens. Diwu Qingrou groaned. He felt as if his head was about to explode. What's going on? What was going on? The big clans never cared about the small clans within their sphere of influence. In the eyes of the leaders of the big clans, these small clans really didn't need to be valued. If the big clans didn't care, the law enforcers naturally wouldn't care either. Therefore, the law enforcement officers only recorded Chu Feiling's return with his son in the records of the sealed heavens. Chu Feiling of the Chu clan returned with his wife. That was all he said. Everyone forgot about it after seeing it. Only Di Wuxia, after discovering this news, was triggered by the word Chu. He specially investigated it secretly. Only then did he realize that this return was actually a son who had been missing for 18 years. Then, Di Wuxia inquired again, and finally found out that the name of the missing descendant of the Chu clan was Chu Yang. When he saw the word Chu Yang, Di Wuxia clearly remembered that the teacup in his hand fell to the ground. His shock at that time was indescribable. Then, Di Wuxia buried this matter deep in his heart. He even felt a little excited. Perhaps, the hope of the Diwu clan was about to really start? But the news of Master Tribulation sword being sealed down below confused Di Wuxia again. Should I make a trip there? Di Wuxia raised his head and looked in the direction of the secret land of the Zhuge clan. He thought that there was still an extremely important matter waiting for him there. After delaying for so long, he couldn't help but frown and murmur, "When this matter is over, I'll go to the southeast personally." In another place, two people were also scratching their heads in distress. Dong Wuxiang and Rui Butong. They had followed the law enforcement officers to the upper three heavens for more than half a month. The law enforcement officers didn't go back on their words. They did introduce a Saber Saint teacher to Dong Wuxiang. But this Saber Saint teacher immediately went into seclusion after meeting Dong Wuxiang. The reason was that Dong Wuxiang had a few words with him after meeting him. This conversation was supposed to be a test for Dong Wuxiang, but the result was unexpected. "Saber Saint, why do you practice saber?" Dong Wuxiang, "Because I like saber." Saber Saint was silent. Dong Wuxiang was silent. Saber Saint, "Where is the saber?" Dong Wuxiang, "The saber is in my hand." "Not in your heart." "No. If your heart doesn't have a saber, how do you practice saber?" "If there is a saber in your heart, the saber is the master of your heart. If there is a saber in your hand, you are the master of your saber." The conversation ended here, because Saber Saint fell into deep thought, and then announced that he was going into seclusion. With some resentment, some regret, some disappointment, he left a sentence, "I don't deserve to be his teacher." Saber Saint's questions were actually about his understanding of the way of the saber. "Why do you practice saber?" No matter if you said it was for the world, for the people, for killing, or for protecting, it was all in line with Saber Saint's understanding of the way of the saber. But Dong Wuxiang was a simple person. He just used a sentence, "Because I like it," to block all these questions. Yes, nothing could be compared to these three words. I like it. If you didn't like it, even if I told you clearly that the world would be yours if you mastered it, you wouldn't practice it. Because you didn't like it. If you didn't like it, it was useless even if you beat me to death. Therefore, Dong Wuxiang's simplest answer was instead the most basic comprehension. Saber Saint didn't achieve his goal. Instead, he was taught a lesson by Dong Wuxiang, although Dong Wuxiang didn't mean it. But Saber Saint clearly felt that Dong Wuxiang was reprimanding him. "You have already deviated from the way you practice saber. You practice saber not to kill, not to protect, and not for the people of the world. Because you were only 2 or 3 years old when you started practicing saber. What would a 2 or 3-year-old child know about killing and protecting the people of the world? You chose saber from all the weapons because you instinctively liked it. That's all. As you grew older, you gradually added more halos to your choices. However, when you move towards these halos, regardless of whether it is noble or sublime, there is no exception. You are no longer practicing the saber for the sake of that simple love. You have already betrayed yourself. Although you have already become great." So Saber Saint immediately became silent. Next he wanted to turn the tables, so he asked, "Where is the saber?" Dong Wuxiang gave him the simplest answer. "The saber is in my hand." Then, Saber Saint became the slave of the saber. Saber Saint lost all his face. At the same time, He was also given a severe warning and went into seclusion. The law enforcement officers were shocked. When Dong Wuxiang left, the law enforcement officers didn't want to let him go. But Saber Saint, who was in seclusion, actually canceled his seclusion and came out to plead for Dong Wuxiang. Let him go. A free saber is a real saber. If you force him to stay, the saber will break. Dong Wuxiang didn't become a disciple, but he had a friend. Although this friend of his immediately disappeared after he said this sentence, he still didn't know what to do. So Dong Wuxiang brought Rui Butong and Mo Layer out of the law enforcement hall. But after coming out, Dong Wuxiang immediately knew that his choice was a little rash. Because in the upper three heavens, gold and silver were worthless. What was valuable were crystals. But the three of them lacked these things the most. They had gold and silver notes, but they realized that they didn't have any money. This feeling was very strange. But at this time, Mo Tianji's calculations were revealed. How could Mo Tianji not understand Dong Wuxiang's temper? So he deliberately arranged an assistant for Dong Wuxiang, Rui Butong. Rui Butong had always been low-key, but Rui Butong had a prominent identity. This master of the Heavenly Armament Pavilion was the successor of stealing gods and thieving ghosts. What did stealing gods and thieving ghosts do? Therefore Rui Butong really had an unfathomable stealing skill. So, as long as Rui Butong was here, it didn't matter even if they were poor. Because they would have it the next moment. In fact, although Mo Tianji's arrangement of these three people was a last-minute idea, it was really flawless. What to do when they just arrived and didn't have anything? Steal. Once they had some achievements and gained a firm foothold, they would have another outstanding leader in internal affairs. Mo Layer. This was the Black Devils, a huge assassin organization, and they could manage it so well. How could Dong Wuxiang, who had a little bit of money, not be able to manage it well? Once they expanded their territory and started to develop, Mo Layer would change into a commander-type talent. And the finance minister was naturally Rui Butong, who could steal from a thief. Rui Butong's stinginess and greed was well known among the brothers. In fact, he was second only to Ao Xian. Ao Xian was born stingy, and Rui Butong was nurtured. So with these three people together, Dong Wuxiang's only task was to fight fiercely. As long as you could fight fiercely, there would be people behind you who would wipe your ass clean. No matter how big your family business was, there would be people to manage it for you. Therefore, the three of them were only melancholy for less than an hour before Rui Butong went out for a stroll. When he came back, there were 20 to 30 pieces of blue crystals and 100 or so white crystals in his arms. After 3 days, Fourth Master Dong was too embarrassed to keep asking Rui Butong to steal, so he covered his face and brought his brothers and wife to rob. Chapter 791. The place where Fourth Master Dong robbed was quite interesting. It was in the city of law enforcement. As the name implied, the city of law enforcement was the place closest to the headquarters of law enforcement. Furthermore, 70% of the people living here were the family members of law enforcement. Dong Wuxiang picked a rich family and slipped in. Fortunately, he was lucky and didn't meet a tough opponent. After some effort, he asked for the location of the treasury and got a big bag. The next day, the entire city of law enforcement was turned upside down. When Dong Wuxiang found out who he had robbed, he also sucked in a breath of cold air. That was the home of a monarch-level law enforcer. Since the existence of the city of law enforcement, there had never been any record of someone daring enough to commit a crime here. It could be said to be the safest city in the upper and lower heavens, because anyone with a brain wouldn't do this. This was equivalent to offending all the law enforcement in the world. Who would be so stupid? Because of this, the vigilance of the people in the city of law enforcement was lower. Not to mention that after Fourth Master Dong succeeded in the robbery, he actually brought his wife and brothers to play in the city of law enforcement with a large amount of purple crystals and enjoyed the feeling of being rich for a while. After knowing the whole story, the three of them were scared out of their wits. However, countless law enforcers scattered in all directions outside the city, and the three of them managed to avoid a calamity. After a few days, they slipped out of the city of law enforcement. But in these few days, The three of them also found out what happened during this period of time. All the passageways of the upper heavens were actually closed. Even supreme martial artists couldn't pass through. This made the three of them feel that something was wrong. Dong Wuxiang and Rui Butong were extremely depressed. Big Brother Chu and Second Master Gu couldn't come up. The three of them were equivalent to fighting alone in the upper three heavens. This was completely different from their previous plan. Therefore, the two of them groaned and groaned, feeling helpless and helpless, sitting and worrying about the city. What should we do? They can't come up and we can't go down. This is bad. Rui Butong squatted on a rock, his whole posture like a monkey pooping. What do you mean, what should we do? The three of us came up with a heavy responsibility on our shoulders. Do you think you can do it if you rely on Big Brother and Second Brother for everything? Although Dong Wuxiang wasn't confident, he was very dissatisfied with Rui Butong's current state. I'm here. Dong Wuxiang was calm and steady, while Rui Butong was jumpy. Dong Wuxiang was imposing and majestic, while Rui Butong was a little shifty-headed. Dong Wuxiang actually wanted to teach this monkey a lesson. However, Rui Butong was extremely alert and did not let him find the opportunity. Then I'm relying on you now. You have the final say. Rui Butong winked. I'll listen to you. Dong Wuxiang glared at him, unable to say anything. It was fine for him to fight, but for him to play mind games, he was not cut out for it. The two of them stared at each other. Rui Butong was unperturbed. Anyway, you are older than me. You can make the decision. Dong Wuxiang panted heavily. The more he looked at this guy, the more he found him to be an eyesore. You go and think of a way. Dong Wuxiang said rudely. I'll do as you say. I will follow your lead. Rui Butong tilted his head. I've seen through you. You're depressed and want to beat me up to vent your anger. How can I fall for your trick? You want me to say I can't think of a way, and then beat me up? I won't say it. What do you mean by following my lead? Dong Wuxiang directly exploded in an unreasonable manner. His thick and strong body pounced over, punching and kicking. You actually called me a horse. That works too. Rui Butong was beaten until his brain short-circuited. After venting his anger, Dong Wuxiang immediately felt refreshed. He said happily, now that the divine throne is on Baidu Tieba, let's think of a way. What should we do next? Rui Butong lay on the ground with bruises all over his body. He wanted to cry but had no tears. If I want to go back, it's better for GMO or Luo Kadi to take the beating. Why don't we become blood payers? Mo Layer suggested excitedly. Mo Layer was from a family of assassins. Assassins also killed people for rewards, and so did blood payers. It was the same nature. Therefore, Mo Layer was very interested in this line of work. What made Mo Layer the most excited was that this line of work was actually a legal organization. There were actually law enforcers protecting the rights of blood payers. Moreover, there would definitely not be a few cases of reneging on debts like in the third heaven. This made Mo Layer feel as if she had arrived in heaven. Blood payers. Dong Wuxiang frowned and said, that's good too. We have to find something to do anyway. However, even if we are blood payers, we have to do it well. We have to set up a goal so that it will be easier for them to find us when they come up. We can also set up a base for our heavenly armament pavilion. Then what should we name it? Rui Butong blinked and said, how about Butong Blood Payers Hall? Scram. Dong Wuxiang raised his thick eyebrows and spat. Why don't we call it Wuxiang Blood Payers Hall? Rui Butong protested loudly. Mo Layer covered her face and was speechless. She was really puzzled. With such smart people like Chu Yang and Mo Tianji, they actually didn't break down after being with these two for so long. I really admire them. The three of them discussed for a long time. In the end, Mo Layer still lost. Dong Wuxiang made the final decision. For Three People Hall. This name made Mo Layer twitch for a long time. Tears streamed down her face. Rui Butong was unhappy about Wuxiang Hall, but neither was Dong Wuxiang Hall. This was a matter of principle. Rui Butong couldn't win against Dong Wuxiang, but he didn't give in even when they were fighting S. Everyone came up together. Why should we use only your name? The two of them were at a stalemate for a long time before they came up with this name. Dong Wuxiang was the fourth in the Heavenly Armament Pavilion, and Rui Butong was the oldest. It was exactly the fourth. As for the three people hall, wasn't there still Emolayer? Although Emolayer didn't belong to the Heavenly Armament Pavilion, she was Dong Wuxiang's family member. Wouldn't that make three people? Dong Wuxiang spoke eloquently, and Rui Butong was delighted. The two of them reached a consensus for the first time. Only Emolayer argued with Dong Wuxiang for a few days over this name. It was too unpleasant to hear. What for three-people hall? It was simply inappropriate. Such an inappropriate name made Emolayer feel like she couldn't lift her head. But Emolayer couldn't do it alone. Dong Wuxiang and Rui Butong had the advantage in numbers, and they praised this name greatly. The minority obeyed the majority, so the matter was settled. Then, the three of them went to the Bloodpayers Hall to register and receive the mission. Dong Wuxiang and Rui Butong rubbed their palms together, ready to work hard to create a name for the three-people hall in the upper three heavens. From then on, the three-people hall was established in the upper three heavens. The cultivation of the three of them was limited, so the first mission they received was only a small one. But Dong Wuxiang and Rui Butong both had great enthusiasm. Both of them knew that without their brothers here, the situation in the upper three heavens had to be created by the two of them. Everything had to be done to the best of their ability. At the same time, they couldn't slack off on their cultivation. But it finally opened today. Rui Butong only raised a concern, and he was beaten up by Emolayer until he ran away like a rat. At that time, Rui Butong was very worried inside. Dong Wuxiang asked him what he was worried about, and Rui Butong said, "I'm just worried about the two of you. There are many things waiting to be done now, and the responsibility is heavy. The two of you have to be careful. If by any chance, the three-people hall will become a three-people hall, and then a three-people hall, although there's one more person." Before he could finish his words, he was chased by Emolayer, who flew into a rage out of humiliation. The upper three heavens. This was a world wrapped in silver. The two of them stood on the top of the mountain. Where is this place? Xia Danfeng wrapped the bearskin coat around her tightly, but she still felt cold. This is the land of exile. Also the southernmost part of the heavens. Tan Tan looked at the silver world in front of him, and said softly, "How did we come here?" Xia Danfeng was a little surprised. She had been unconscious for a few days, and when she woke up, she found herself in a completely unfamiliar place. This feeling was very strange. "I brought you here." Tan Tan was silent for a moment. He wanted to say, "He brought us here." But after thinking for a long time, he finally swallowed these words back. "When are we going back?" "We're not going back. Let's practice here. This is the fastest way to progress." Tan Tan took out the divine chi gathering fish from his bosom. Then, he shook his hand and threw it into the snow. The snow suddenly melted under the divine chi gathering fish, and the spiritual energy in the air gradually formed into a storm. Finally, it turned into water droplets and dripped down. In this whole snowy land, there was actually a pool. It was a pool completely made of spiritual energy. It was 10 feet long, 10 feet wide, and 10 feet deep. In the future, when we drink water, we drink the water in here. If you want to take a bath, take the water out and wash. Then what do we eat? There are spirit beasts here. Moreover, under the snow there are vegetables. Although it's not as diverse as on the mainland, it has its own flavor. Oh, and the inner cores of the spirit beasts here are very condensed because of the cold, which is also very beneficial for my cultivation. Tan Tan, where are we going to live? Right here. After a long while, a palace of ice and snow rose from the ground. After entering the palace, it was unexpectedly warm and cozy. I'll get some more spirit beasts fur to cover the surroundings. This place will be very warm. Tan Tan, are you Tan Tan now? Tan Tan finally became silent. After a long time he said, "No matter what I've become, I'll always be your Tan Tan." He said somewhat heavily, "Right now, I've just received some memories. So my heart is very heavy. But I'm still me. Do you understand?" Xia Danfeng nodded somewhat confusedly. Then she pondered and probed. "Don't tell me you're not worried about your brothers?" Tan Tan was silent. Finally, he raised his head in melancholy. "Danfeng, I know that you think I'm somewhat abnormal. But, I had a very clear intuition when I was at the Lake of Despair. Chapter 792. Chuyang. Du Xing, they are all fine, but I. Tan Tan suddenly grasped Xie Danfeng's hand tightly. There was helplessness in his eyes. I will awaken my strength again and again in the future. I will receive my memories again and recover again and again. Every time I recover, there will be huge movements. I will be with them again. They will never abandon me and run for their lives if they find out. I will only implicate them, and they will die with me. He smiled bitterly. His voice sounded as if he was crying. I can't bear to leave them, especially Chuyang. But I can only leave. I don't know what I will become in the end. But I'm afraid that I won't be myself. Tan Tan's hand that was holding Xie Danfeng was trembling. So, I brought you here by force. He looked deeply into Xie Danfeng's eyes. That strange face of his didn't look so strange at this moment. He then said in a somewhat imploring manner, I need you to remind me at all times that I'm Xie Danfeng. Not that person. Not that thing. Xie Danfeng's eyes became moist. She tightened her grip on Tan Tan's hand. Her voice was as gentle as water. I will remember. I will remind you. I will never let you become someone else's. Tan Tan cracked a smile. Do you blame me for being selfish? I brought you to this world of ice and snow for myself. Xie Danfeng thought for a moment. She nodded and said, Yes. So, you must protect me in the future. You must not become someone else's bully. This is your redemption. This is also my compensation. Tan Tan finally laughed cheerfully. His eyebrows began to jump up and down. He happily said, Of course. This is something that doesn't need to be said. You are my wife. Shameless. Who said that I am your wife? Xie Danfeng's voice gradually became smaller. Even her neck had turned red. Ha ha ha. Tan Tan laughed foolishly and said, This is the most suitable place for me to practice. We will go out together and look for them when my strength reaches a certain level. He said with some longing. In fact, I like to be with them the most. Xie Danfeng nodded heavily. You also need to cultivate. Come try this martial art. Back then, only the Holy Mother of the Three Stars Divine Clan was qualified to practice this martial art. This was a dense forest. 7 or 8 people were running in the dense forest in fear, fleeing for their lives. With a schwa sound, a figure landed in front of them. His eyes were filled with cold killing intent. You bastards, you insulted the Heavenly Armament Pavilion, and you still want to run? This person was wearing a strange mask. There was a wolf's head on the mask, and an eye-catching 5 was engraved on the wolf's head. He was the 5th Pavilion Master of the Heavenly Armament Pavilion, Lord Wolf. He was also the former Wolf Sword Marshal King Luo Kadi. The 5 of them knew that they were doomed. They gritted their teeth and said, Lord Wolf, you've already eradicated our families. Do you really have to kill us all? Luo Kadi coldly snorted. If you had obediently tucked your tails between your legs, this king would have disdained to deal with you. The mistake was that you wantonly attacked the Heavenly Armament Pavilion. You deserve to die. The 5 of them roared at the same time, and attacked from 5 different directions. Good timing, Luo Kadi roared. A bright light surrounded his body. His sword was already out of its sheath. With a flash of light and a clang, the sword was sheathed. Luo Kadi flew up like the wind and reached the top of a tree. With another flash, he had already disappeared without a trace. In the dense forest, the 5 of them stared in disbelief. They touched their throats. In the next moment, blood spurted out of their throats at the same time. They fell to the ground with a plop. The Heavenly Armament Pavilion was like the sun. Wherever the Heavenly Armament Pavilion's flag was raised, all the aristocratic families had to give way. Even the dark bamboo had to be courteous to them. This was absolutely unimaginable in the past 3 days. Beside the Lake of Despair, Gu Duxing crawled out of the lake. With a loud roar, he kicked a 10,000-kilogram boulder beside his feet into pieces. I still can't dive to the bottom. Gu Duxing squatted down in pain. Boss, where are you? Where are you? He sat beside the Lake of Despair and stared at the lake for a long time. When the sky turned dark, Gu Duxing finally stood up. With a shrill roar, Gu Duxing turned into sword light and flew up from the Lake of Despair. He rushed down the mountain at lightning speed. Mo Clan. Net Motianji sat in front of his desk and frowned. In front of him there was a piece of white paper. On it, there were a few big words written in ink. It was obvious that Motianji had yet to complete a task. He was planning Heavenly Armament Pavilion's first-year cultivation goal. Gu Duxing Grade Sword Sovereign. GMO, Grade 5 Martial Emperor. Ao Xian. Motianji thought for a long time. He crossed out the goals that his brothers had reported. He changed Gu Duxing's Grade 8 Sword Sovereign to Grade 8 Sword Sovereign. Jimo's goal was changed to Grade 7. All of them increased by 2 grades. He muttered, even if I only reach Grade 7, it's still 1 grade higher than Grade 9. Following the Calamity Sword Master only has such a small goal. How can I? I have to increase my cultivation at all costs. Someone knocked on the door. Motianji agreed. Someone pushed the door open and walked in. Uncle, how do you feel today? Motianji raised his head. When he saw the person, he smiled. It was the Black Devil. It's better than yesterday. The Black Devil laughed and said, I know what you've been worrying about these few days. So I thought of a secret technique of the Black Devil clan. I want to see if it can help you. Secret technique? Motianji's eyes brightened. The reason why the Black Devil clan is strong is not because of killing people. It's because of hiding. The Black Devil laughed. He took out a book and placed it on the table. If you really want to rush up to the upper 3 heavens, then you'll have enemies everywhere. And they'll all be very strong. Hiding and invisibility will become a must-cultivate technique. He placed the book on the table and smiled. He limped out and said, I'm going to play chess with old Mo. Motianji's eyes swept across the book. His expression turned serious. This was an ancient book. The paper was very fragile. It looked as if it would break with a touch. It was unknown how old it was. On the cover there were 5 words. Assassination Manual. He carefully flipped open the cover and saw the words on the title page. Stealth must be traceless. Killing must be invisible. Clear water enters the sea. Golden dragon hides in the clear sky. Motianji flipped through the pages. The more he read, the more excited he became. Finally, he hurriedly wrote a few notes and sent them out. In another place, Ao Xia Yin and Xia Danxiong were practicing. Both of them were sweaty and in a sorry state. The viburnum flowers danced in the air, brushing past him. Ao Xian couldn't dodge in time, and the clothes on his legs turned into butterflies and flew away. Xia Danxiong suddenly screamed and looked at Ao Xia Yin's legs. On Ao Xia Yin's legs, golden scales had already attached to his calf and were shining. Xia Yin, your dragon scales have grown so fast these few days. Xia Danxiong said excitedly. Yes. I don't know why, but I've been dreaming of becoming a dragon every night. It's strange. Ao Xia Yin said with some frustration and expectation. But this is still a good thing. Xia Danxiong said. Yes. At this rate, if you don't stop, your dragon scales will reach your waist in half a year at most. By then, you'll be able to open the dragon vein treasure. So I plan to send the news to Motianji and Gu Duxing tomorrow. By then, everyone will come together to open the treasure. Ao Xia Yin said. Xia Danxiong hesitated for a while and said, This is something that the Ao clan has guarded for thousands of years. It's not good for all of us to come. Ao Xia Yin smiled lightly and said, When Boss Chu was around, he never split the good things between us. Gu Duxing followed Boss Chu for the longest time, but I don't see Boss Chu giving him any special treatment. Everyone is the same. Do I, Ao Xia Yin, have to take it all for myself? He sighed and said, Besides, I also understand. If I don't have all of you, what's the point of me going alone? Not to mention the heaven-defying things in the treasure vault. Even if all the powers of the upper 3 heavens were added together, they would be nothing in the upper 3 heavens. The people of the big clans are all here at the Lake of Despair. We also saw the demeanor of the big clans. But, if they can stand firm in the upper 3 heavens, can't we? How are they stronger than us? Ao Xia Yin said angrily. That's why I want to charge forward with my brothers, especially Li Batian and Chen Fei Chen, as well as those bastards from the Shi clan and Xiao clan. We'll kill all of them. Xia Danxiong laughed loudly. At this moment, someone came to report. Young master, Clan leader Emo has sent a message. He wants you to go over as soon as possible. Ao Xia Yin and Xia Dan Xiong looked at each other. It seems like there's something. Let's go. Alright, this way. I won't have to inform them. We can just come over from there. Yes, bring some weights and train along the way. Don't let those freaks leave us behind. Haha, you're right. At different locations, GMO, Gu Duxing, Luo Kudi and the rest all received Mo Tianji's message. The brothers gathered from all directions once again. In the far north wastelands, Duke Yu's cave residence. Duke Yu felt refreshed. He came out of the cave and waved his hands. The cave closed. He flew up and rushed in another direction. It's been so long. I wonder how Zhu's seclusion is going. Duke Yu thought as he walked. That bastard Chu Yang can't have really drowned at the bottom of the Lake of Despair, right? That would be a joke. The Calamity Sword phenomenon has already appeared. This means that the Calamity Sword Master isn't dead. Since he's not dead, where did he go? He thought for a while and had no idea. He thought, I'll go and find Zhu first and settle the marriage between Lulu and me. I can't calm down if this matter is left hanging. During this period of time, Big Boss Chu was in charge of the Purple Crystals Huichun Hall. In the blink of an eye, it had been close to a month since the Purple Crystals Huichun Hall opened. In the first few days, they relied on Divine Dr. Chu to go out every night, and then continued to treat the fruits of their labor the next day to earn purple crystals. Happy Face Carrot online game. Burning to waste because of a resurrection technique skill book. Ling offended one of the strongest guilds in the human kingdom. He was then banned, and his level dropped to 0. However, an accident allowed Ling to obtain memories from the future. Dungeon strategies, hidden missions, locations of treasure chests and powerful players in the future. Ling knew all of them like the back of his hand. After starting over again, Ling wanted to change his profession to the best hidden profession, learn the best magic, get the strongest weapons and equipment, bring the strongest pets, find all the treasure chests in the world, get the first clear of all dungeons, recruit the strongest players and build the strongest guild. Then, he would destroy everything in his path as easily as crushing dry weeds and smashing rotten wood. Chapter 793. Part 7 Chapter 10. The Chu clan's internal strife. Forced abdication. It must be said that robbing once and collecting medical fees again was actually a fast way to earn money. But slowly, Divine Dr. Chu's black-hearted reputation spread out. But so did his superb medical skills. From the 10th day onwards, he actually didn't need to go out and rob people. The number of customers increased. And they were basically old injuries. Everyone was from the pugilistic world. As the saying goes, who wouldn't get stabbed in the pugilistic world? Once they got stabbed, who could guarantee that they could be cured? This batch of customers were basically old people. Their cultivations weren't very high, but they had important positions in their respective clans, and had some real power. In fact, this matter was completely logical and reasonable. Those with high cultivations were basically suppressed by their profound cultivation, so their injuries weren't serious for the time being. Those with low status couldn't afford the huge medical fees here either. Only those who had been injured in the past, but for various reasons, did not get rid of the root cause, which then developed into chronic diseases. Moreover, these people lived like princes, and as their cultivation declined, these chronic diseases began to surface. And it was precisely this type of illness that gave all the doctors a headache. Who dared to say that they could be cured of the injuries from decades ago? At most, they could only be relieved and relaxed for a while. It was simply a fool's dream to get rid of this type of illness. Apart from these people, there were also some clan leaders and elders from small clans. Of course, they weren't clans like the Chu clan. The Chu clan wasn't big in the heavens, but in the flat mountain ridge, it was still considered very big. Such a change made Chu Fian widen his eyes. The little lowly Chu Le also ran around energetically every day. Divine Dr. Chu was very busy now. His money was rolling in, but Divine Dr. Chu was annoyed again. Only 100 or 200 purple crystals entered his account every day. When would he be able to earn so much? Divine Dr. Chu looked up to the sky and sighed. He was extremely depressed. If he said this out, the Chu clan would beat him up into a pig's head. It should be known that such a big clan like the Chu clan only had a little more than 100 purple crystals left after deducting all expenses. St. Hall now, this guy was earning 100 or 200 purple crystals a day, and he actually thought that it was too little. So, Divine Dr. Chu learned from the painful experience and resolutely raised the threshold. If you want to see a doctor, you won't see a doctor if it's less than 100 purple crystals. This action attracted a lot of curses, but there was nothing they could do. Seeing that Boss Chu was like a dead pig that wasn't afraid of boiling water, they really couldn't do anything to him. The only clan in the flat mountain ridge that could control the Chu clan was the Xiao clan's branch, but it had been crippled by Divine Dr. Chu. The remaining Bao clan and Liao clan didn't dare to provoke Divine Dr. Chu, who had the backing of the Chu clan. Moreover, after the incident with Xiao Yulong, he didn't even dare to use any dirty tricks. They could only watch him act arrogantly. Although the price had been raised by 5 times, there were still many patients who needed treatment every day. Thus Divine Dr. Chu felt at ease. He was so happy that he forgot about his duties. After a month, the net profit had already reached over 8,000 purple crystals. In addition to the 4,000 pieces that Chu Yang originally had, the number of purple crystals had broken through the terrifying 10,000. On this day, Chu Yang received 2 messages at the same time. The first one made Chu Yang want to laugh even in his dreams. There was a conflict between the Xiao clan and the Li clan. Currently, there was a serious conflict between both parties. The Xiao clan couldn't care about the matters here for the time being. To the Xiao clan, a mere clan in the flat mountain ridge was really nothing. If there was nothing going on normally, they would naturally treat it as a big matter. But now, there were so many things going on. The Li clan had a calamity. The Xiao clan wasn't far from the Li clan. So the Xiao clan knew how to make a choice. For the conflict between the clan and the law enforcement officers, the Xiao clan had given enough sincerity to apologize. 20,000 purple crystals. To compensate the law enforcement officers of the law enforcement hall for their losses. And to express their gratitude to the law enforcement hall for dealing with Xiao Yulong's matter. They had helped them clean up the mess. Of course, no one knew what their real thoughts were. But at least on the surface, they were so harmonious. Sacred Hall. The Xiao clan's purple crystals were quickly handed over to the law enforcement officers. The law enforcement master of the law enforcement officers detained 10,000 purple crystals and allocated another 10,000 purple crystals to the law enforcement hall in the flat mountain ridge. Sha Xinliang had secretly sent 1,000 purple crystals to Divine Dr. Chu. Of course, everyone was well aware of the reason behind this. As early as a month ago, Divine Dr. Chu had warned Commander Sha, "No matter what, you can't tell others that I've treated your illness. That is to say, we're strangers in front of everyone." Sha Xinliang agreed readily. So, he would do these things very secretly in the future. After receiving the reply from the Xiao clan, Sha Xinliang beheaded Xiao Yulong and the others in public as a warning to others. So the Xiao clan's matter came to an end. Divine Dr. Chu was most interested in the conflict between the Li clan and the Xiao clan. But he didn't know the details because the information was blocked and couldn't be circulated. Apart from this depression, Divine Dr. Chu was very satisfied with this matter. The second matter made Divine Dr. Chu want to kill people even in his dreams. The matter happened in the Chu clan. Seeing that Divine Dr. Chu's profits could no longer be described as earning a lot of money every day, and that his monthly profits had actually exceeded the annual net profits of the Chu clan, they immediately became envious. Everyone had worked hard for the Chu clan for so many years. You've just been found, and your position in the Chu clan hasn't stabilized yet. But you actually took such a big pie for yourself. And you didn't even express anything? You're too insensible. And you're even using the foundation that we've worked so hard for so many years. So, everyone suggested to old Master Chu, take back this medical center. Or, let this medical center hand over half of its net profit every month. Someone was secretly manipulating this matter. The entire Chu clan was actually in an uproar. Everyone was dissatisfied. Chu Feilong had been expanding his henchmen and taking in the clan's forces these years. His means were brilliant, and he was sensitive and deep. With his current strength, He had already formed a great influence. Hundreds of people came together to force Chu Failong to abdicate, and they were all outstanding talents from various industries in the Chu clan. There was no lack of martial arts experts among them. Old Master Chu was furious. In the hall of the Chu clan, Old Master Chu's temper was provoked, and he roared for the whole afternoon. But hundreds of people were still kneeling rigidly, and no one was willing to back down. Chu Xiongqing was furious, and he finally became furious. That's my grandson. And he's my eldest grandson. He's the descendant of the Chu clan. Which of the Chu clan's younger brothers doesn't have an important position now? My eldest grandson is only in charge of a pharmacy, and it's my eldest grandson who bought it and turned it into his personal property. What right do you have to be unhappy? Others have the ability to earn purple crystals, and you're jealous of them? Why don't you go and earn it? You only know how to be jealous and covet other people's achievements? A bunch of bastards. Old Master Chu stomped his feet and scolded. These words were very satisfying, but it also aroused the anger of the crowd. Or rather, Chu Failong instigated everyone to do this just to force Old Master Chu to say these words. A malicious-looking man raised his head and said, "Master, do you mean that many of us are making trouble for no reason?" Chu Xiongqing was furious. "Why? Aren't we?" That person let out a sorrowful laugh and said, "Honorable Patriarch, it has been 33 years since this lowly one joined the Chu clan. In these 33 years, this lowly one has been blessed by Honorable Patriarch. This lowly one can be considered to have worked hard without complaint. Starting as a martial warrior, I gradually became a junior deacon, then a deputy supervisor, then a supervisor, then a senior deacon, until now. Although this lowly one cannot be considered to be a part of the Chu clan, this lowly one has still put in some effort. In order to manage my affairs well, and not disappoint you, I didn't even have time to practice martial arts. I buried myself in the accounts and dealt with the numbers. I started to curry favor with various people, and only hoped to make the Chu clan rich. Clan master, perhaps you don't know, but 33 years ago, I was an 8th stage martial king. Now, I'm a 5th stage martial king. Haha, 33 years, and you've only risen by 1 stage. This man laughed, and he was filled with endless grief and indignation. I'm not talented, but 33 years ago, I was only 25 years old. Now I'm 58 years old. The Chu clan's annual income is at most 2,300 purple crystals. But everyone was already very satisfied then. Because this is enough for the clan to nurture experts, protect the clan, develop its strength, and stabilize it. Now there's obviously a chance for the clan to soar. The monthly income of a medical center is 8,000 purple crystals. The middle-aged man was almost shouting at the top of his lungs. Master, 8,000 purple crystals. This is enough for the Chu clan's overall strength to rise by 1 stage. If it's 8,000 purple crystals a month for 2 years, the Chu clan can completely transform. Countless martial artists who are stuck in bottlenecks can break through with the energy of these purple crystals. The man hissed, I'm now in charge of external affairs. I'm only a manager, and I don't have a high cultivation. How much of these purple crystals can I enjoy? Am I only doing this for my own benefit? Now for your own grandson, you're indiscriminately biased. We're doing this for the Chu clan wholeheartedly, and we're being unreasonable. He said mournfully. This lowly one also understands that Lord Patriarch feels that he owes his grandson, and wants to make up for it. That's why you're doing this. Moreover, young Master Chu Failing did buy the medical center, and gave it to his son. Logically speaking, it's indeed his personal property. But, even if he's your grandson, his surname is Chu. Even if he's a person, he should be the property of the Chu clan. Why does he still have personal property? He turned around and faced the crowd. Did we do anything wrong? Did I say anything wrong? Why are we being treated like this? Everyone's faces were filled with grief and indignation. The man turned around and knelt on the ground. He kowtowed a few times to Chu Xiongqing. Then he raised his head and revealed a disheartened look. He said sternly, Clan Master, I'm already old and mentally and physically exhausted. I can't bear this heavy responsibility. Clan Master, please allow me to return to my hometown and live out my remaining years. I have something to do today, and it'll take a long time. I might not be able to return at night. So, I stayed up the whole night and rushed out 2 chapters for today's update. I'll also ask for a recommendation. Chapter 794. Chu Xiongcheng's face turned pale. Are you forcing me? As a steward, you should know what personal assets are and what clan assets are. Why are you still being so unreasonable? This person knelt down quietly and kowtowed again. He revealed a disheartened expression and said, It's all my fault. I only hope that clan master will allow me to retire and return to my hometown, St. Hall. Chu Xiongcheng stared at him, and his breathing became more and more rapid. Suddenly he roared, Since this is the case, why should I keep you around? If you want to retire and return to your hometown, I'll allow it. This person's face turned pale and he said, Thank you, Clan Master Chu. He had already changed his address from Clan Master to Clan Master Chu. It was obvious that he didn't admit that he was from the Chu clan. Everyone's expression changed. Another white-bearded elder said hurriedly, Clan Master, Steward Wu has always been responsible and diligent. Please take back your order. Chu Xiongcheng's anger couldn't be contained. He said loudly, He wants to leave. What can I do? Everyone looked at each other. Suddenly, a few of them gritted their teeth and stood up. We also want to retire and return to our hometown. Please allow us to do so. With these few people taking the lead, the others knelt down at the same time. We're also old and don't have much time left. We want to retire and enjoy the rest of our lives. Please allow us to do so. Chu Xiongcheng was so angry that his entire body was trembling. His beard moved even though there was no wind. He was about to roar, Leave, leave. Chu Feilong had been standing by the side. At this moment, he suddenly stepped forward and said loudly, Everyone, please don't be impatient. Please listen to me, Chu Feilong, okay? Everyone said, Second Master, please speak your mind. Chu Feilong frowned and said, Everyone is loyal to the clan. Everything you do is for the clan. Although your methods are a little extreme, I can understand that you're doing this for the good of the clan. I can understand that. But it doesn't make sense for you to be so intense. How can you be so forceful? Chu Feilong's gaze was serious and he said righteously, Since things have happened, there must be a solution. What's the effect of being forceful? If everyone goes their separate ways, it will be a huge loss for my Chu clan. But everyone, I don't think you'll be any better off, right? Everyone immediately calmed down. The chaotic situation just now suddenly became somewhat quiet, as if everyone was seriously thinking about it. Net-net, this fully reflected Chu Feilong's prestige in the Chu clan. Then, in your opinion, how should this matter be resolved? That grizzled bearded old man seemed to be somewhat unconvinced. He said, That's right. This is the Chu clan's matter, and we only exist because we depend on the Chu clan. Who wouldn't want their family to be strong? Who wouldn't want to look down on all heroes? But the old master's actions truly make us bitterly disappointed. Everyone sighed. Chu Feilong said angrily, What are you talking about? My father's temper isn't good, but he doesn't have any bad intentions. Besides, we've all known each other for so many years. Don't you all understand my father's temper? What's the reason for forcing me to do this? Everyone looked ashamed and lowered their heads one after another. Only then did old Master Chu feel a little better. But in the next moment, everyone raised their heads at the same time. They said with some grief and indignation, However, if we allow such a huge amount of wealth to be gathered in the hands of one person, we're still a little. Chu Feilong was instantly enraged. That's my nephew's personal wealth. Besides, only he has this ability. If it's an ordinary person, not only would he not be able to earn so much, he would also suffer losses. There are countless medical centers in the flat mountain ridge, but which one can do this? Are you all really going to be entangled in this matter? It's not that we're unreasonable, but this amount of wealth is really too big. The entire clan has more than 20,000 people. If we include the outsiders and ordinary members, it's almost 30,000. It's only about 1,000 purple crystals a year. Now just one person is occupying at least 100,000 purple crystals a year. Second Master, this matter, don't tell me. Chu Feilong snorted and said, Then in your opinion, what should we do? Take it back. Everyone said in unison. Net. Chu Feilong said angrily. Do you think we can take it back just because you say so? If we take it back, who will take over the management of the clan? To practice medicine? Do you all have this ability? What if my nephew can't take it anymore and stops? He's just returned from outside and doesn't know much about the clan. If he's pressured like this, how can you bear to do this? Besides, wouldn't that be a huge loss to the clan? Everyone looked at each other. The white-bearded elder stepped forward and said, Second Master, I have an idea. Speak. Chu Feilong said coldly. Actually, no matter what, young Master Chu Yang is still a member of the Chu clan. This is an unchangeable fact. Since he's a member of the Chu clan, he has the responsibility and obligation to seek benefits for the clan, and not to fill his own pockets with profits. The old man spoke with conviction. Since Second Master is also concerned about this aspect, it's not like I haven't considered it before. In my humble opinion, we can take the medical center back, and young Master Chu Yang will still be the chief doctor. However, for the sake of fairness, we can let Tinghu and Tengjiao assist young Master Chu Yang in managing the medical center. After all, they're all grandsons of the clan master. It's not good to be too biased. Besides, regarding the distribution of profits, young Master Chu Yang can monopolize 20% of the profits. Tinghu and Tengjiao can only share 10%. The remaining 70% will be given to the clan to develop its power. As long as we have these purple crystals, the Chu clan can become the #1 clan in the flat mountain ridge within a year. Furthermore, we can even develop into the #1 clan in the entire southeast region, excluding the Xiao clan. This is the biggest duo of our Chu clan for generations. Chu Feilong was silent. He frowned and sighed continuously. The white-bearded elder said anxiously, Second Master, Clan Master, you can't hesitate. Now the Xiao clan is in conflict with the Li clan outside. Even when the branch here is destroyed, the Xiao clan has no time to care about it. Now is the best time for us to develop. If the conflict between the Xiao clan and the Li clan is over, we'll really lose this opportunity. These words were explained with emotions, moved with reason, and tempted with benefits. He explained it from all aspects. Especially towards the end, old Master Chu, who was the most stubborn, couldn't help but be moved. Chu Feilong pondered for a while and said, It's not impossible, and it's indeed a heaven-sent opportunity. He sighed, turned around and said, Father, you also understand. This son thinks that this matter is actually a very good thing for our Chu clan. Although Yang is a little aggrieved, he can monopolize 20% of the profits. That's at least 1,500 purple crystals a month. Then, no matter how he cultivates, it'll be enough. Even if big brother and sister-in-law cultivate in the most extravagant way, it'll be more than enough. Chu Xiongcheng's face was solemn and he said, Let me think carefully. Yes. Chu Feilong said respectfully. Then he struck while the iron was hot and said, Father, there's also Steward Wu. He proposed to leave because of a moment of indignation. Actually, Steward Wu is very capable. Over the years, he has made great contributions to the Chu clan. This matter is all for the sake of the clan. Father, please consider it carefully. Forgive him for being rash and take back your order. These words not only affirmed Steward Wu's capability and showed his loyalty, but also gave old Master Chu a way out. Below, Steward Wu knelt down and kowtowed, saying, I was muddle-headed. Please forgive me. Chu Xiongcheng sighed and said, Forget it, forget it. If he insisted on being stubborn, the Chu clan would fall apart in front of him. This was the most unacceptable thing for a clan master and a person in power. But if he didn't insist, he would only mistreat his grandson, who had been mistreated for 18.5 years. Chu Xiongcheng sighed. Does this grandson of mine only have the fate of being mistreated? Even I, the patriarch of the family, couldn't protect him? If this is the case, this child doesn't have much sense of identity with this clan. In this way, he won't feel any warmth. Furthermore, Chu Yang has the life and death order of the elder. If this goes on, is the division of the Chu clan really inevitable? After coming out of the hall, Chu Xiongcheng went straight to Chu Feiling's courtyard with a heavy heart. In the hall behind him, Chu Feilong looked at the 100 people in front of him and smiled slightly. His square and dignified face suddenly revealed a trace of a smile, which actually looked very sinister. After Chu Xiongqing walked out of Chu Feiling's courtyard, an unprecedented war broke out in Chu Feiling's courtyard. Yang Ruolan gritted her teeth and fought with Chu Feiling crazily. Yang Ruolan was really going crazy. Is he only a descendant of the Chu clan? He's also my son. How can the Chu clan be considered a big clan when you go back on your words? Do you rely on despicable and shameless schemes to grow strong? Chu Feiling, you're such a good person. Will you only be satisfied after you're framed? I'll bring my son back to my parents' house tomorrow. Does the Chu clan want to earn purple crystals? Go and earn it yourself. What's the point of using my son? Could it be that a capable person is wrong? Is it a crime to be able to earn purple crystals? Your whole family is trash. You've lost money to him for 18 years. Now that he's just come back and is starting to improve, you actually start to bully him. Clan. You talk about your clan every time you open your mouth. I only acknowledge my son. Whoever dares to bully him, you can try. If they can bully my son, do you think that I, Yang Ruolan, am so soft-hearted that I don't dare to bully their son? If they can't beat him, we'll all die together. Chu Feiling, if anything happens to my son, I'll make sure that the Chu clan doesn't have any descendants. I'll kill them all one by one. Who do you think you are? This was the first time that Yang Ruolan, who had always been docile, was so angry that she was hysterical. She directly scolded without caring about the consequences. Her voice was so loud that the entire Chu clan could hear it clearly. Chapter 795. Old Master Chu stopped on the road and heaved a long sigh as he listened to the angry roars coming from the courtyard. He was so conflicted that his intestines were all twisted together. Old Master Chu had always been puzzled. I'm not fit to be a clan master. I'm just an adventurer. I've always kept a respectful distance from these power struggles. I admit that I'm an idiot. But why did Elder Master appoint me as the clan master? It's a pity that I've been roasted on this raging fire for so many years. That morning, a clan meeting was held. There was no suspense at all. Chu Feiling and his wife's objections, as well as Duan Shuyi's and the rest's opinions, were all ignored. Almost unanimously, the resolution was passed. The core members of the clan didn't put a mere Chu Yang in their eyes in the face of such huge benefits. A person who just came back, who has exquisite medical skills, and whose martial cultivation has been crippled, is nothing more than a waste. Occupying more than 100,000 purple crystals every year? Some people couldn't be justified. Yang Ruolan overturned the meeting table on the spot. She kicked the table in front of Chu Feiling and picked up the table beside her. She smashed it on Chu Feilong's head. After that, she slapped Chu Feilong's face a few times. She pointed at Chu Feilong and shouted angrily, Chu Feilong, I know this is your idea. Let me tell you, I can tolerate what happened in the past. But, from now on, if you dare to touch a single hair on my son, I'll kill 3 of your sons. This action shocked everyone in the Chu clan who was present at the meeting. Chu Feilong couldn't dodge, but Yang Ruolan was his sister-in-law. As the saying goes, a sister-in-law is more important than a mother. He could only endure it in front of everyone. Chu Feilong wiped the sawdust off his face. A cold light flashed in his eyes. He laughed bitterly. Sister-in-law, you're too aggressive. I have no choice but to do this for the sake of the prosperity of our clan. Yang Ruolan snorted mockingly and said, You know why I did this? If you don't want to have no descendants, you'd better behave yourself. Yang Ruolan kicked a few tables that were closest to her and sent them flying. Then, she walked out with large strides and left behind a few words. You're just a bunch of rabble who are jealous of talents. You actually want to develop and strengthen your family. What a joke. This sentence actually scolded the entire Chu clan. Chu Feiling hurriedly chased after her. He was worried that something would happen to his wife in her rage. Silence reigned once more. Old Master Chu's face darkened. One of the deacons plucked up his courage and said, How? How can you say this? First Madam is so narrow-minded. Fighting for power and profit is not the way of a daughter-in-law. Master, I suggest that she Before he finished speaking, Chu Feilong had already stood up and slapped him across the face. He said angrily, "That's my sister-in-law. Whatever she does to me is what I should do. Who do you think you are? How dare you meddle in our family affairs?" That person's boot-licking had hit the horse's leg, and he was immediately battered and exhausted. That palm-sized slap made him see stars in front of his eyes, and he was at a loss. Chu Feilong wiped away his cold sweat. Asking Chu Yang to hand over the medical center had already made Master feel disgusted. If Chu Yang also proposed to punish Yang Ruolan at this time, Master would already feel sorry for Chu Yang. How could he deal with Chu Yang's mother? Perhaps the old master would explode on the spot, and everything would be ruined. Chu Feilong stopped him at the right time. The old master was about to explode, but he restrained himself because of Chu Yang's action. Chu Yang was in the medical center. He grabbed the hand of a shifty-looking old man and was trying his best to steal purple crystals. The matter between the Xiao clan and the Li clan really made Big Boss Chu very happy. So, he was smiling all the time today. Seeing that it was almost noon, Big Boss Chu had just sent away the last patient. He propped up his legs and was about to drink tea and hum a few songs. Then, he saw two people coming in. They were handsome, wearing a brocade robe and smiling. "Big brother, you're busy here." Chu Yang smiled instantly. "Why are you here?" "From now on, we'll be working under Big Brother." Chu Tinghu smiled and looked at Chu Yang. "The clan has sent us here." Chu Yang's heart moved. He smiled and said, "Oh, the clan has other arrangements for this medical center." Chu Tinghu looked at Chu Yang with pity and said, "Big brother, after all, we're from the Chu clan. Everything we do is for the clan." Chu Tingjiao laughed and said, "Big brother, your place is really shabby. You don't even have a place to sit?" Squinting his eyes, Chu Yang smiled gently. "In other words, you're here to take up your duties today?" Chu Tinghu bowed. "We'll have to depend on you." Chu Fian couldn't hold back his anger and asked, "When did this happen? Why don't I know about it?" Chu Tinghu said, "Fourth uncle didn't go home these few days. This is today's decision." Chu Fian was so angry that his whole body trembled. "This is Yang Yang's property. Why does the clan want to interfere? What's the reason?" Chu Tinghu smiled. "The clan has decided to take back this medical center." "Bullshit," Chu Fian said angrily. "I'll go back and ask." "No need, fourth brother." Chu Feilong walked in with a few accountants and smiled. "This is father's decision. If you go back and ask, you'll only make him angry." As he said, he took out the clan warrant and showed it to Chu Yang. Chu Fian felt as if he had fallen into an ice cave. He took 2 steps back and felt cold all over. Chu Feilong announced the clan's decision on the spot. The medical center would be taken back by the clan. Chu Yang would be appointed as the chief physician of the Purple Crystals Huichun Hall and would have 20% of the profits. Chu Tinghu would be the shopkeeper and would have 5% of the profits. Chu Tingjiao would be the accountant and would have 5% of the profits. The remaining 70% would be taken back by the clan. The clan would also send 2 servants and 3 old doctors to fill up the shop. Such a decision was equivalent to making Chu Yang a mere figurehead. He wouldn't have any finance or power left in his hands. After the announcement, Chu Fian flew into a rage. Chu Luer pursed her lips and didn't say anything. "Chu Yang, did you hear that?" Chu Feilong looked at Chu Yang amiably. Chu Yang nodded slightly and smiled. "Of course the clan's decision is right. That means you'll obey the clan's decision?" Chu Feilong couldn't help but be stunned. "Of course. I'm willing to give up everything for the clan, not to mention a medical center." Chu Yang said seriously. "Second uncle, after all, my surname is Chu." "Very good." Chu Feilong felt that he had punched the air. Facing Chu Yang, who was extremely cooperative, he had nowhere to exert his strength. A very depressed feeling arose spontaneously. During this period, Chu Feilong had spent a lot of effort to investigate the relationship between Chu Yang and the law enforcer. But no matter what he saw or heard, he didn't feel anything unusual. Ever since Xiao Yilong's case was over, both parties had no contact. But Chu Feilong still didn't dare to lay his hands on Chu Yang. Then, he planned for a long time before coming up with this plan. Use the clan's power to force Chu Yang. Even if the law enforcer intervened, this was still a clan matter. As long as Chu Yang was slightly dissatisfied, he could punish him according to the clan's laws. However, Chu Yang's current cooperative attitude had rendered all of his tricks useless. Could it be that his only gain was the shares and dividends that he snatched from Chu Yang? This made Chu Failong very unwilling. He always felt that Chu Yang's presence in the Chu clan was a huge hidden danger to him. A huge threat. Good. The future of this medical center is in your hands. Chu Failong laughed and was about to leave. Second uncle, wait a moment, Chu Yang said calmly. What's the matter? Chu Failong was delighted. Is this little one going to contradict me now? I just want to ask, now that this medical center has been taken back by the clan, who's the person in charge here? That is to say, under the condition that the clan doesn't interfere, who has the final say in this medical center? Chu Yang asked calmly. Chu Failong stared at him and didn't answer for a long time. Chu Yang's question was asked very calmly, but Chu Failong clearly knew that this sentence was Chu Yang's counterattack. And this counterattack put him in a difficult position. On the first day that Chu Yang woke up, he gave Chu Failong a warning. Chu Failong was more afraid of Chu Yang than anyone else in the Chu clan. If he said that Chu Yang had the final say, then Chu Yang would have obtained the clan's authorization. He would have countless means to keep the purple crystals. In that case, it would only be in the name of the clan. In fact, it would still be Chu Yang's own medical center. His two sons wouldn't be able to get any benefits, and would even get into trouble. Compared to Chu Yang's scheming, the two of them weren't on the same level. If he said that his eldest son Chu Tenghu had the final say, then Chu Yang was afraid that he would bring endless trouble to this medical center. And any trouble could only be borne by the person in charge. Chu Yang could reject all of them with one sentence. I'm only a doctor, not a boss. I don't care about that. He could reject all of them. For the first time, Chu Failong felt that it was tricky. He was silent for a long time and finally thought, if this is the case, it's good. It's a good opportunity to train Tenghu's ability to take charge. If he can fight against Chu Yang and gain an advantage, or even not suffer a big loss, then he'll be considered to have really trained, from a certain point of view. This is actually a good thing. Humph, Chu Failong has always advocated benevolence, considering the big picture, and being righteous. His son shouldn't lay his hands on his own brothers. Moreover, I'll always be there to help him come up with plans, thus he said. It seems that the shopkeeper has the final say in the external affairs of the clan. Chu Failong would never have thought that it was this sentence of his that almost pushed his two sons into the abyss of eternal damnation. Chu Failong didn't know that Chu Yang was the king of Hell Chu. He didn't know anything about Chu Yang's past. And now that the double sky was closed, he had no way to inquire about it. If he knew, even if he was given the courage of the heavens, he would never dare to put his two children next to the king of hell, who could swallow millions of troops with just one mouth. I took my wife out to play, for my small family and lifelong happiness. I'll make sure to write 2 chapters a day for the next few days. About 5 days, hee. Chapter 796. Chapter 72. If you behave atrociously, I'll keep you company. Others may have compassion and compassion. But King of Hell Chu doesn't have any compassion or compassion. As for brotherly affection, it depends on who you are with. If it were others, they would definitely cherish their home after wandering outside for 18 years. They would be well behaved, and only hope that they could integrate into their family as soon as possible. But Chu Yang was different. He also cherished his home, but he wouldn't be well behaved, nor would he swallow his pride. And the consequence of him cherishing his home even more was, everyone who affected the peace of this family, no matter who they were, would be eradicated. If Chu Failong really knew about Chu Yang's past, he might not even dare to scheme for this medical hall. As someone who was always scheming and scheming, Chu Failong knew better than anyone else how frightening intelligence could be. He could kill millions of soldiers just like that. Why would he care about the two of you? How laughable would that be? Placing the two of you by King of Hell Chu's side, and taking the fruits of King of Hell Chu's labor. This was definitely 10,000 times more frightening than asking a tiger for its skin. After getting an affirmative answer, Chu Yang smiled amiably and said, "If that's the case, I understand. Second uncle, don't worry. I'll do my best as the chief physician and assist second brother to bring our purple crystals Huichun Hall to greater heights. In the future, when the purple crystals Huichun Hall becomes famous and the Chu clan becomes stronger, second brother's name will also become famous." Chu Feilong stared at him for a while and finally said, "The clan's punishment for cheating and scheming is also quite severe." Chu Yang smiled frankly and said, "Second uncle, do I look like someone who doesn't care about the big picture? After all, this is our clan's business. We're brothers whose blood is thicker than water." Chu Feilong thought, "What do you mean by look like? You're definitely one." He snorted and said, "It's best that you think this way." He turned and left. "You're going too far." Chu Feiyan was so angry that his whole body trembled. He didn't care about Chu Luer's persuasion and chased after him. Chu Yang stroked Chu Luer's hair lovingly and said, "Luer, I don't need you here. Go to the room inside and watch Li Xiang." Chu Luer looked at him strangely. Chu Yang's face was calm, but his smile was warm. After a long while, Chu Luer tiptoed and kissed Chu Yang's face. She smiled happily and said, "Big brother, I'll go and watch the show then." Chu Yang was talking about reading books, but the little girl was talking about watching a show. When Chu Fian came back, his face was bruised and his clothes were tattered. He cursed angrily. His expression was one of disappointment, pain, sadness, and disbelief. "Are you my second brother or not? Are you still the old Chu Feilong? Where's your heart? Where did the previous Chu Feilong go? Why did you become like this? Why?" Chu Fian thought about how he had only received Chu Feilong's cold and indifferent gaze when he asked Chu Feilong over and over again. Chu Feilong felt as if a knife was being twisted in his heart. Chu Feilong doesn't even feel guilty. Chu Fian, who was in a terrible mood, went back to the medical center. He ignored everyone and rushed into the inner courtyard. "Fourth uncle, aren't you going home?" Chu Tinghu smiled and asked. Yes, the clan had taken back the medical center. They didn't arrange for Chu Fian to work here. As a shopkeeper who had just obtained power, Chu Tinghu naturally felt that his fourth uncle was too much of a hindrance here. Chu Fian stopped in his tracks. He turned his head and smiled at Chu Tinghu. "Why, Tinghu, do you want to command your fourth uncle too?" Chu Tinghu's expression changed. He lowered his head and said, "I'm sorry, fourth uncle. I'm just concerned about you." Chu Fian laughed weirdly and said, "When I want to go back, I'll go back. When I don't want to go back, it's not up to you to tell me what to do. Do you understand? This is the territory of the Chu clan. You can go wherever you want to go. Do you understand?" Chu Tinghu lowered his head and said respectfully, "Fourth uncle, you're right. I'm being presumptuous." But a cold light flashed across his eyes secretly. Chu Fian said angrily, "I'm asking you, do you understand? You should answer understand, or don't understand. You're not here to flatter me." Chu Tinghu's face turned red. He could only say, "I understand. If you understand, you'd better behave yourself. Don't learn from your father to be evil." Chu Fian snorted and left. After all, Chu Tinghu was his nephew. Although Chu Fian's last sentence seemed to be scolding him, even Chu Yang could tell how much earnest and sincere hope he had. The servants came in an endless stream, bringing in new tables and chairs. The place was densely packed. The head shopkeeper and the head accountant each carried out their duties. The two old physicians also sat in the hall to treat patients. Everyone was in their respective positions. Hence, the Purple Crystals Huichun Hall continued its business. Chu Yang sat calmly on his chief doctor chair. His expression was calm and natural. It seemed that this great change of power had no effect on him at all. It didn't even have the right to make his mood fluctuate. Such composure made Chu Tinghu's eyes flicker a few times. The fear in his eyes became more and more intense. His killing intent and evil thoughts also became more and more uncontrollable. If he didn't come back, the position of clan master of the Chu clan would have been my father. After my father, it would have been mine. But he came back. And judging from his scheming and shrewdness, he's really my biggest rival. You're just a bastard who has led a wandering life since young. What right do you have to compete with me? If I don't get rid of you, I won't be at ease. Chu Yang looked at the two brothers shouting and shouting. His eyes were full of smiles. However, after an entire afternoon, behind the smile in Chu Yang's eyes, there was a touch of coldness. Neither of the two brothers was a kind person. Just like their father, they were all evil things. Chu Yang sighed in his heart. He lowered his gaze and looked at his toes. Although he wanted to deal with Chu Feilong, he didn't want to eliminate Chu Tinghu and the other Chu clan descendants. After all, they were born from the same roots. So he still needed to observe. Now the two of them actually sent themselves to him. Chu Yang had only come into contact with them for a little while, but he had already understood the nature of these two people. Their contempt and rejection, their obvious gloating, and their viciousness to kill Chu Yang had all been seen by Chu Yang. When they occasionally turned their heads, the coldness in their eyes was like that of a venomous snake. All of this made Chu Yang's killing intent soar. I haven't had time to deal with you, but you've already taken the initiative. Chu Yang sneered in his heart. You want to snatch my fruits of labor? Just based on the two of you? Even Diwu Qingru and Mo Tianji couldn't take advantage of me. You two are still wet behind the ears, and you actually want to take advantage of me. You're really tired of living. Damn it, I'm too soft now. Everyone wants to step on me. Wait and see. You don't treat me as your elder brother, and I don't want you to be my younger brother. If you behave atrociously, I'll drink with you. Chu Tinghu and Chu Tingjiao were very excited. 5%. Although it was only 5%, the two of them knew how terrifying the profits of this purple crystal's Huichun Hall were. 8,000 a month, 10% would be 800, 5% would be 400. How much was 400 purple crystals? The two of them had never seen so many purple crystals in their lives. Elder brother, our medical center has been open for a month. Let me sort out the previous accounts and income, Chu Tingjiao said with a smile. Greed was already revealed in his eyes. The previous accounts and income were 8,000 purple crystals. Chu Yang smiled and said, Oh, my cute younger brother, the clan only said. From today onwards, this medical center will return to the clan. What does this mean from today onwards? Do you understand? Chu Tinghu interrupted with a smile. Elder brother, but it used to be the property of the Chu clan. Moreover, I'm now the shopkeeper here. What he meant was, you don't listen to me. I'll punish you for disobeying my orders. That was already a faint threat. Chu Yang smiled amiably and said, What you said is very reasonable. Since that's the case, you can go and find fourth uncle. All the purple crystals are in his hands. He sighed and confided in them. Younger brothers, this is the only bad thing about being juniors. We should just put in some effort. How can we have the purple crystals? Otherwise, do you really think that fourth uncle is here every day to play? Chu Fian was full of anger now. Sending someone to let him vent his anger seemed to be an act of filial piety. Chu Tinghu and Chu Tingjiao looked at each other. What Chu Yang said was reasonable. But who dared to ask for the purple crystals in fourth uncle's hands? Chu Yang had already shouted, Fourth uncle! Fourth uncle, are you here? Chu Fian rushed in, fuming with anger. Why are you howling? Chu Yang said apologetically. Tenghu and Tingjiao want to check the previous accounts and income. Please take out the purple crystals. After all, a month has passed. Everyone should have a share of the profits. Chu Fian said angrily. You want purple crystals? Bullshit. You don't even have a single piece. Chu Yang advised. Fourth uncle, we're all one family. After all, this is the clan's property. Chu Fian fumed with anger. If you want to make use of me, just say so. Damn it. The purple crystals Huichun Hall has earned tens of thousands of purple crystals. But there's not even a single piece of purple crystal in my hands. I don't even know if those purple crystals grew wings and flew away on their own. You actually want them to ask for it from me? Chu Fian was about to explode. Chu Yang sighed and said sincerely, Fourth uncle, I've heard that you've endured humiliation for the sake of the big picture. You have walked through the south and north, stretched out your legs in the pile of corpses. You've killed people, smacked your lips, and drank water behind the latrine. What kind of person are you? You've even passed through the lower three heavens. Just take out the purple crystals. Everything is for the clan. The king of hell Chu emphasized the words lower three heavens a little. Chu Fian was instantly angered. He snorted and looked at Chu Tinghu and Chu Tingjiao. Suddenly he grinned. Both of you come with me if you want purple crystals. Chapter 797. No Advertising Words Part 7 Chapter 73 Appetizer. Hearing this, Chu Tinghu took a step back and thought, even if I get the purple crystals, I'm afraid I'll be beaten up. Father had just beaten up fourth uncle, and he had nowhere to vent his anger. It was better to let Tingjiao do this. Chu Tingjiao was 1 year younger after all, and wasn't so scheming. In addition, his heart was filled with greed, so he said excitedly, I'll go with fourth uncle to get it. The two walked into the inner courtyard one after the other. Suddenly, with a poof, Chu Fian shouted, Have you seen the purple crystals? Then, there was a crackling sound, accompanied by Chu Fian's angry shout. Have you seen it? Have you seen it? Chu Tingjiao's cries could be heard. Everyone went over, and saw that Chu Tingjiao's face was already red and swollen. He was lying on the ground with mud all over his body, crying bitterly. Chu Fian had already disappeared without a trace. Chu Tinghu's eyes were spitting fire, and he rushed in hurriedly. Tingjiao, are you okay? Fourth uncle didn't give me the purple crystals, and even beat me. Outside, Chu Yang smiled coldly. Beat you? Fourth uncle is really too soft-hearted. He really should beat you to death. That night, Chu Feiling and Yang Ruolin came to the medical center personally to pick up their son. Yang Ruolin cooked a table of delicious food for her son. Looking at Chu Yang wolfing down the food, her beautiful eyes were full of worry. Chu Feiling was envious. He tried to reach out his chopsticks several times, but was beaten back. Yang, are you okay? Seeing that Chu Yang was smiling as if nothing had happened, Yang Ruolin asked worriedly, what's the matter? Chu Yang blinked, and continued to struggle with the table of delicious food. I mean about today's matter. Do you have any thoughts? Yang Ruolin said. Why don't we go back to the Yang clan instead of staying in the Chu clan? Chu Feiling suddenly became anxious. Mother, you're talking about this matter. Chu Yang wiped his mouth and smiled. This matter? I know what to do. Mother, you may not know your son's means. Don't worry and just watch. Means? Yang Ruolan felt a little more relaxed. She said, What means do you have? I, your son, am not one to suffer losses. Chu Yang winked. You don't know about this, but my sworn big brother does. Sworn big brother? Yang Ruolan was startled for a moment. Then she came to her senses. She was extremely depressed at the moment. However, she couldn't help but want to laugh wildly. Chu Feiling blushed and scolded. Little brat, I think you're just itching for a beating. The originally stiff atmosphere suddenly became lively. The couple had quarreled with each other because of their son, but they had also resolved a lot. Chu Yang smiled. He held Yang Ruolan's hand and said, Mother, don't worry. Your son is the ancestor of scheming. They can't beat me. As for leaving, we can't. Right now, the Chu clan was facing internal and external troubles. Of course, there were too many people who weren't very good. But we would rather destroy the Chu clan and rebuild it than leave. Only if we leave will we be able to satisfy everyone's wishes. Chu Feiling's face turned pale. Destroy the Chu clan and rebuild it? The corners of Chu Yang's mouth curled up in a calm smile as he slowly nodded. Chu Feiling and his wife were speechless for a moment. Even the furious Yang Ruolan had never thought of destroying the entire Chu clan. However, Chu Yang had clearly said this sentence. Chu Yang smiled and thought at the same time. Chu Feilong really couldn't be underestimated. Chu Yang had tried every means to erase his connection with Sha Xinliang and the others just to set up a trap. However, Chu Feilong was still cautious and didn't step into it. Moreover, he gave up the idea of using force to deal with Chu Yang and changed to another path. The path that he took was the most troublesome one for Chu Yang. It was also the most effective way to deal with Chu Yang, using the power of the clan to suppress Chu Yang. No matter which way Chu Feilong attacked from, Chu Yang would be able to use the toughest means to kill Chu Feilong. However, Chu Feilong could only use this method slowly and couldn't go too far. As long as Chu Yang went too far, the Chu clan would either fall apart or decline completely. Another possibility was that Chu Yang would be expelled from the clan again. Chu Feilong might not care about it, but Chu Yang couldn't not care about it. After living outside for 18 years, he finally had a home. Wouldn't it be a pity to destroy it with his own hands? Just like this. Do you think you've hit me where it hurts? Chu Yang smiled like a spring breeze, but he sneered in his heart. Let's play slowly. I will play with you to your heart's content. Tomorrow I'll give you an appetizer. As for the main course, let me brew for a while. Chu Yang let the sword spirit possess his body in the dark night. Then, he disappeared from his room in a flash without making any sound. Outside, the few experts sent by Chu Feilong to monitor the small courtyard didn't see anything. As for the spies arranged in Chu Feiling's courtyard, they didn't even notice anything. With Chu Yang's meticulousness and the sword spirit's cultivation, if Hai Bei and the others were to spy on them, then they would really die. Not long after, Sha Xinliang's angry roar could be heard from the law enforcement hall. This roar contained so much anger, so much annoyance, and so much killing intent that it almost wanted to devour people. It was really difficult to describe. The few law enforcement officers who were standing guard at the entrance of the law enforcement hall shuddered at the same time. What happened again? But they didn't know that Chu Yang had received such treatment just by complaining. Elder brother, I have no other choice. I've been bullied like this. If I can only leave this place and avoid this troublesome place. This sentence made Sha Xinliang extremely anxious. All the other elixirs have been collected, and only the 2 elixirs on the way are left. Once they arrive, Qin Baoshan and I will be fine, and the law enforcement master is also rushing here. A great contribution is waiting for the 2 of us. If Chu Yang were to be ostracized by the Chu clan at this time, wouldn't everything be ruined? The punishment of the law enforcement master after being deceived was secondary. The key was, Sha Xinliang's life would be in danger. At this moment, Sha Xinliang's hatred towards Chu Feilong couldn't be washed away, even with all the water in the 3 rivers and 5 lakes. If Chu Feilong was in front of him now, Sha Xinliang would definitely swallow him alive. That's so. Chu Yang frowned and tapped on the table. Sha Xinliang nodded repeatedly and looked serious. On the second day, Divine Dr. Chu went to work very early. He sat on the chair of the chief doctor and started to act like a tyrant. He put one foot on the table of the old doctor on the left and shouted to the doctor with triangular eyes, "Go, make me some tea." "You." The old man glared at him, and his face turned red with anger. "Chief doctor." Chu Yang looked at him evilly. "Why, don't you want to earn purple crystals? Let me tell you, if you don't serve me well, I'll be in a bad mood." "As long as I'm in a bad mood, purple crystals? What's that? I don't know any of them." The old man was dumbfounded. Who had seen such a hooligan-like young master? At one side, the shopkeeper Chu Teng who hurriedly said, "Elder Go, as a doctor, why don't you listen to the chief doctor? You must know that there's an order between seniors and juniors." As he said, he winked at Elder Ge. Now he still needed to rely on Chu Yang to earn purple crystals. He couldn't offend him for the time being. As long as the 2 of you work hard and learn his skills, it'll be easy to deal with a useless person without any cultivation. Although Elder Go understood this, he was still so angry that his hands trembled like chicken feet. He had been a doctor in the Chu clan for half of his life. Who dared to shout at him like this? Not to mention making tea for someone. This was really the first time in his life. He could only get up shakily and go to make a cup of tea. He put it heavily on the table and said, "Young master, please have some tea." Chu Yang glanced at him and slammed the table. He was instantly furious. "Bastard. What kind of person do you think I am? The tea that you're drinking now is only for pigs. How noble am I? You actually made this kind of tea for me? You old dog, do you not want to be a doctor anymore?" Elder Go was so angry that he rolled his eyes. He trembled and couldn't say a single word. He pointed a trembling finger at Chu Yang, and his eyes almost popped out. You. What?" Chu Yang glared at him. "You old dog, you're still not convinced? Don't think that I can't bear to scold you just because you're so old. You're not my son either. Look at you, ah? Do you still have some rules? You've been a dog in the Chu clan for a generation. Why, you actually want to bite your master today. You're really too daring." Elder Ge trembled and took 2 steps back. He covered his chest with his hands and said in a trembling voice, "I'm so angry, so angry. Piss you off? Why aren't you dead yet?" Chu Yang went over, pinched his chin and lifted it up. He smiled evilly. "Don't think that you have the 2 young masters protecting you. Let me tell you, the Heavenly King is protecting you. As long as you don't learn how to earn purple crystals, you'll always be a lapdog. Do you understand? Old dog." Chu Tinghu's face turned purple. He stood up from behind the counter and said, "Big brother, why do you have to do this? You're angry with a servant." Chu Yang laughed and said, "You're right, he's just a lowly servant." Elder Ge trembled even more violently. His lips turned blue, and he almost couldn't stand still. He knew that Chu Yang was looking for trouble, but he could still bear it. But the old man couldn't accept Chu Tinghu's words of servant. Although he knew that it was an expedient statement, he still felt uncomfortable in his heart. At this moment, Chu Yang stretched out his hand and knocked the teacup on the table to the ground. More than half of the hot tea splashed onto Elder Ge's legs, making them wet. Chu Yang muttered to himself, "My temper is like this. If you can't stand it, then get lost. Damn it, there are so many idlers everywhere. They don't have any ability, and are about to enter the coffin. Not only do they cheat for food, but they also want to learn from 17 or 18 years old. I'm really going to kill my second uncle. Why is he so thick-skinned? It turns out that he only has one face in his life, and it's all on his ass. No wonder he's so flirtatious. Sweat, thank you for everyone's blessings. But please don't spend too much money. Actually, it's been a while, but I've kept it a secret. Anyway, it doesn't affect my updates during this period of time, right? Haha, I'm already very grateful for everyone's subscription. It's already very good and outstanding for ordinary people to have a few people who understand them and support them. But I have close to 30,000 subscribers. Your recognition of me is my greatest pride. I'm sincerely grateful to everyone. Yes, my wife's wedding dress, my children's milk powder tuition fees, and my elderly support and filial piety all come from everyone's subscription. Thank you. You're my brothers and sisters, and also my parents for my livelihood. I'm going out to play. I won't stop updating these few days. I'll update every morning. I wish everyone a happy life. At hashtag. Chapter 798. Chapter 74 of Part 7, is really unlucky. Elder Ge coughed, as if he had asthma. White foam flowed out from the corner of his mouth. He couldn't even say a word. After gasping for breath for a while, his eyelids suddenly rolled up, and he sat down on the chair. He actually started to twitch. Damn, I'm going to have to put a coffin in it. So shameless. Chu Yang scolded his bad luck. He turned to look at Chu Tinghu and Chu Tingjiao, who were full of anger, and said, "Brothers, don't you think so?" Chu Tinghu's face was as cold as water, and he didn't say anything. Chu Tingjiao remembered his father's teachings last night. Just let him do whatever he wants. As long as you catch the purple crystals, everything will be fine. You don't have to lower yourself to his level. As long as he goes overboard, we have ways to deal with him. He couldn't help but blurt out, "Big brother, you're right." As soon as he said this, Elder Ge rolled his eyes. He didn't faint from Chu Yang's poisonous tongue, but he really fainted from Chu Tingjiao's words. At this moment, a carriage stopped outside the door. Then, 2 guards supported an old man and walked in tremblingly. "Excuse me, is Divine Dr. Chu here?" "I'm here to see a doctor." Chu Tinghu and Chu Tingjiao looked at each other and instantly became excited. The purple crystals are here. They didn't bother to support Elder Ge and went up to welcome him. "Elder, what's your illness?" "This is Divine Dr. Chu." As they said, they pointed to Chu Yang. The old man's eyes instantly lit up, and he held Chu Yang's hands. "Divine Dr. Chu, you're really young and promising. I'm Song Wanzhuang, a consecrator of the Song clan in the Flat Mountain Ridge. All these years, my old injuries have been tormenting me." Chu Yang smiled warmly. "Elder, please take a seat. I think you also know the rules of my purple crystals, Hui Chun Hall?" Song Wanzhuang nodded repeatedly. I understand. I've already prepared the purple crystals." "Good." Chu Yang smiled, stretched out 2 fingers, and placed them on Song Wanzhuang's wrist. Chu Yang looked very confident. Chu Tinghu and Chu Tingjiao looked at each other and saw the complacency in each other's eyes. Another doctor, who was sent by Chu Feilong, also quietly came over and watched Chu Yang's diagnosis. He was looking forward to learning something about dark energy. Chu Yang narrowed his eyes and put his two fingers together. After a long time, his brows suddenly twitched. Then he wrinkled his brows, and his complexion sank. Putting down his finger, he looked at Song Wanzhuang with a heavy expression and said, "Old sir, this injury should be an old injury from 50 years ago, right?" Song Wanzhuang's eyes widened, and he said in surprise, "Divine Dr. Chu is really amazing. Moreover, an expert who was at least a second-grade emperor-level expert had hit you with his palm at that time. Let me see, it's still a poison palm. Let me feel it more carefully. Furthermore, it's the yellow flower poison palm? If I'm not wrong, this palm should have hit your shoulder, and not a vital position," Chu Yang said mysteriously. Song Wanzhuang was even more surprised. Yes, you're right. Divine Dr. Chu's skills are really amazing." Sigh. Chu Yang let out a long sigh. "Elder, your cultivation started to decline 10 years ago, right?" Song Wanzhuang nodded repeatedly, and his expression became even more respectful. "Divine Doctor, you have sharp eyes." Chu Yang took a breath and said, "Elder, I don't understand. You've already learned such a vicious palm technique 50 years ago, and you've suppressed it for so many years. Why didn't you suppress it 10 years ago?" Song Wanzhuang sighed. 10 years ago, I was already 15 years old, and my physical strength was getting weaker day by day. It's a long story." Chu Yang shook his head regretfully. Song Wanzhuang's heart lit up, and he said nervously, "Divine Dr. Chu, my injury, is there still hope?" Chu Yang let out a long sigh. "Elder, what a pity you've come too late." "Ah," Song Wanzhuang exclaimed. "If you came 10 years ago, I could still cure you." Chu Yang shook his head and sighed. "But unfortunately, in the recent 10 years, your cultivation has declined, and you can't suppress the residual poison. The poison has already entered your bone marrow, your dantian has collapsed, and your meridians are still. I'm ashamed." Everyone in the room was dumbfounded. No one would have thought that this guy, who had said everything clearly and logically, would actually say, "I can't cure you." Song Wanzhuang left in a daze. Before he left, Chu Yang gave him a simple exercise method for free. He said that if he treated him with this method, he wouldn't be able to get rid of the poison completely, but he could at least relax his body a little. Seeing that Song Wanzhuang had left, Chu Yang let out a long sigh. His face was full of shame, and his heart was full of guilt. Alas, a doctor has the heart of a parent. Seeing that someone is sick, but I can't cure him. It's really, alas, this feeling of powerlessness and shame is really driving me crazy. Chu Tinghu and Chu Tingjiao looked at each other. Not only did they not earn any purple crystals, they even had to go up and comfort him. Chu Yang kept blaming himself, and the two of them were so depressed that they wanted to kill him. While comforting him, the two of them definitely didn't know that the seemingly simple method that Chu Yang gave him was actually the best treatment method given by the sword spirit. As long as Song Wanzhuang really followed this method, he would find that his body had recovered completely in less than a year. Enjoying the comfort of these two ghostly and toad-like faces, Chu Yang let out a long sigh, and his eyes were filled with tears. The heavens are tyrannical, and all living things are suffering. Pity my people, we have so many worries. What a benevolent and righteous king. Such demeanor and tone would definitely make those chivalrous heroes feel ashamed. Then a few more patients came. Chu Yang still accurately pointed out their illnesses, and then shook his head apologetically. "I really can't do anything. Alas, I'm ashamed. If you can find someone in the land of great herbal medicine, there might still be hope." "I'm ashamed, I'm sorry, I won't send you off." After they left, Chu Yang sighed as usual. The veins on Chu Tinghu and Chu Tengjiao's faces were bulging, and their eyes looked as if they wanted to eat someone. It was still the same in the afternoon. Those who came to Divine Dr. Chu for treatment today were all terminally ill. Divine Dr. Chu couldn't cure any of them. In the end, Chu Tinghu and Chu Tingjiao didn't comfort him anymore, but just looked on coldly. But divine Dr. Chu was still expressing his feelings. Alas! What a pity! My medical skills are supposed to benefit the world and benefit the people. But the heavens are tyrannical, and the earth is ruthless. Life, old age, sickness, and death can't be reversed. I have a compassionate heart, and I'm filled with the feeling of saving the world, but I can't do anything. Is there anything sadder than this in the world? Alas! Heavens and earth, why are you so ruthless? Deities, please save my patients. Chu Tinghu and Chu Tingjiao were speechless. Looking at Chu Yang's expression, they couldn't wait to swallow him into their stomachs. It was the same on the second day. On the third day, they still couldn't do anything. Every time a patient left, divine Dr. Chu would sigh, "Alas, I'm so powerless." Another 3 days passed like this. Chu Tinghu and Chu Tingjiao also endured for another 3 days. Finally, they couldn't bear it anymore. Before we came, you cured every patient that came. After we came, you chased away every patient that came. What does this mean? They finally understood what Chu Yang was planning. You want to make use of me to earn purple crystals? Wishful thinking. I'd rather not earn any money than let you make use of me. Anyway, I still have 8,000 purple crystals. Big brother. What do you mean? Chu Tinghu said angrily. What? What do I mean? Chu Yang asked. I don't believe that you can't cure any of these illnesses? Chu Tinghu was furious. Do you think we're fools? How dare you? I really can't cure any of them. I don't have that ability. Chu Yang smiled. Why don't you let these 2 respectable doctors treat them? Sigh. Actually, you also know that I'm so young. How can I have any superb medical skills? It's just that I was farting a few days ago, and it just so happened that. Chu Tingjiao roared. But you can't possibly not cure any of them, right? Chu Yang spread out his hands. You've also seen it. It's just that I didn't cure any of them. See how guilty I feel now. How powerless I am. How shameful. Chu Tinghu's face turned green. He wanted to fly into a rage, but he suppressed it. He put on a smiling face and said, Big brother, I know that you're unhappy, but, just like what you said, we're a clan. Everything is for the clan. As a clan, only when the clan becomes stronger can we. Yes. Chu Yang said seriously. This sentence is really true. As a clan member of the Chu clan, we'll die for the Chu clan. For the clan's interests. Even if we have to climb a mountain of swords, or plunge into a sea of fire. We'll do it without hesitation. I'm very gratified that you have such a high awareness. As a clan member of the Chu clan, it's really good that you can think like this. Come on. Chu Yang said sincerely. Chu Tinghu and Chu Tingjiao were so angry that their faces turned black. They stared at this shameless person, gritting their teeth and clenching their fists tightly. Both of them had given up huge benefits to come here from other important positions. They didn't expect this guy to be so shameless that he would even sacrifice himself to do this. If they had known this earlier, why would they give up huge benefits to come here? On one side, Old Ge said in a strange tone, Of course, everyone values the clan's interests. But it's not necessarily the case for some people who have led a wandering life since childhood. Damn old dog. Damned old slave. Chu Yang was furious. He turned around and gave him a slap. The slap was extremely clear and loud, and he shouted, As a slave of the Chu clan, you actually dare to insult the Chu clan's master. I'll punish you on behalf of the clan. I'll punish you on behalf of the clan. I'll punish you on behalf of the clan master. I'll punish you on behalf of the law enforcement officers. On behalf of my second uncle, I'll knock out your teeth, break your legs, pull out your tongue and smash your mouth. As he scolded, he continued to beat Old Ge. Although Old Ge had some martial arts cultivation, he had neglected it all these years. Besides, when had he ever encountered such an encounter? What's more, he didn't expect this Grand Duke to attack him so suddenly. He only suffered 5 blows before he vomited blood and fainted. Chu Yang finally stopped punching and kicking. He seemed to be very tired. Holding his knees with both hands, he panted and said angrily to Chu Tinghu and Chu Tingjiao, It's your turn. Quickly go and teach this old dog a lesson. Do you still have any laws? Do you still have any rules? He actually dared to scold us. He's really rebelling. Chapter 799. Chu Tinghu snorted heavily. He couldn't bear it any longer and said angrily, Chu Yang, don't go too far. Chu Yang was surprised. I went too far? He suddenly jumped up and said angrily, I went too far? How did I go too far? I'm doing my best for the clan. I'm doing my best to treat patients. How did I go too far? Chu Tinghu was so angry that his whole body trembled. Don't think that others can't control you. If you dare to indulge in others again, I'll teach you a lesson. Chu Yang stuck out his chest and squinted his eyes. Why don't you try to teach me a lesson? As he said, he came closer. Chu Tinghu was so angry that his face turned pale. But if he really wanted to hit Chu Yang, he really didn't dare to do so in front of so many people. Because Chu Yang had always been the boss. If he, as the younger brother, hit Chu Yang, it would be tantamount to disrespecting his elder. It would be an act of disobedience. In the clan rules, it was clearly written that he would be expelled from the clan. And the most infuriating thing was that although Chu Yang had done everything, he was in the right. This was what made people unable to spit out blood. He was indeed doing his best to treat patients. Although he couldn't treat them well, he also didn't take the initiative to provoke anyone. He was always the one who took the initiative to strike first. Everything had its cause and effect. Chu Tinghu and Chu Tingjiao glared at Chu Yang, but there was nothing they could do. Just as they were in a stalemate, suddenly, someone came to the door. Who's the shopkeeper here? Someone asked calmly at the door. Everyone looked back and saw a man wearing a law enforcement officer's uniform walking in with his hands clasped behind his back. The word law enforcement officer was printed in silver on his chest. It was actually a silver plate law enforcement officer. Behind him, there were two ordinary iron plate law enforcement officers. The three of them walked in, as if no one else was around. Chu Tinghu hurried over with a face full of smiles. Oh, it's law enforcement officers. May I know why you're here? That law enforcement officer snorted and said, You're the shopkeeper? Chu Tinghu said, Yes, it's me. Very good. The law enforcement officer's face instantly darkened, and he shouted, Look at your clinic, what's up with it? What's the matter with those indecipherable things outside? Indecipherable? Chu Tinghu was stunned. Those paintings are unsightly. He's clearly a demon who's polluting the world. The enforcer snorted and waved his hand. Tie him up. Bring him back for interrogation. Let's see who sent him to pollute the flat mountain ridge. I suspect that this guy is a spy from the 3 Stars Divine Clan. A spy from the 3 Stars Divine Clan? This hat was really big, and it wasn't something that an ordinary person could wear. Chu Tinghu was dumbfounded at once. He retreated continuously. Your Excellency, I'm innocent. She suddenly remembered, and pushed Chu Yang out. She hurriedly said, My lord, this is all his doing. He's the shopkeeper? The enforcer asked. Chu Tinghu widened his eyes. We're only looking for the shopkeeper. Only the person in charge. The enforcer snorted and said, He's just a worker. Why are we looking for him? Chu Yang stepped forward to plead. Law enforcement officer, this is my younger brother. He's young and ignorant. Although he's wrong, he's still worthy of forgiveness. The enforcer rolled his eyes and said sternly, I only know that the law is merciless, but I don't know that young people can be forgiven. If you have something to say, go and talk to the commander. Bring him away. 2 enforcers had already rushed forward like wolves and tigers, and tied Chu Tinghu up on the ground. Their movements were very familiar. As Chu Tinghu struggled, he cried out in grief and indignation. Why didn't you come to investigate when he was here a few days ago? Now that I've taken over, you're here to investigate? You're obviously colluding with each other. As law enforcement officers, The law enforcer kicked him and scolded. We law enforcers can investigate whenever we want. How dare you say that we should or shouldn't? You've slandered a law enforcement officer, and your crime is increased by 1 level. You've slandered a law enforcement operation, and your crime is increased by 3 levels. Chu Tinghu was in so much pain that his tears flowed out. He said, Tingjiao, quickly go back and inform father. Let him save me. Chu Tingjiao ran away. The enforcer's eyes lit up. There's actually a fish that escaped the net. Take down this accomplice as well. He stretched out his hand and pressed down Chu Tingjiao, who had already run to the door. Then Chu Tingjiao fell to the ground. A rope was looped around his neck. Then he was tied up again and slapped on his face. The enforcer said, "Are there any more accomplices?" Chu Tingjiao looked at him with grief and indignation. He gritted his teeth and didn't say a word. The enforcer moved closer to his ear. "What? There's another two. Those two old men? What the heck? I say, the two of you don't have any intention of obstructing the public's image. You're actually two old men. No wonder you keep talking about aphrodisiac. Take them down." The two old men rolled their eyes and fainted. The three enforcers escorted the four people back. Before they left, they didn't even say anything about rectification. That obstructing the public billboard was still standing there, and it was very eye-catching. "It's not good." Miracle Dr. Chu Yang patted his butt and walked out. Looking at the disappearing figures, he looked extremely panicked. He turned back, closed the door swiftly, and ran back to the Chu clan. In the Chu clan, Chu Feilong was supervising the clan's martial artists in the square. He pondered. Chu Yang has been slacking off these few days. What should I do to stop him from doing so? He thought and thought, but he didn't have a good idea. He frowned and thought, do I have to go on like this? While he was pondering, suddenly, a loud and clear shout came from the door. Oh no, oh no! My two younger brothers have been taken away by the enforcers. They've committed a serious crime. It was Chu Yang's voice. In the hall of the Chu clan, Old Master Chu sat at the front with a black face. Below him, all the important members of the Chu clan were seated. At this moment, Chu Yang was anxiously narrating what had happened. He said that Chu Tinghu and Chu Tingjiao had been taken away by the enforcers. He tried his best to save them, but the enforcers were impartial and had no effect at all. He had no choice but to return to the clan for help. Chu Feiling, Yang Ruolin and Chu Fian looked strange. Chu Feilong was so angry that his nose became crooked. Chu Yang finally finished narrating. Looking at everyone's expression, he suddenly rushed to Chu Feilong and said anxiously, "Second uncle, quickly think of a way to save Tinghu and Tengjiao. I've seen the enforcers' methods last time. I was so scared that I couldn't sleep for a few days and nights. If the two of them stay in there for too long, they'll suffer a lot of torture." Chu Yang's face was full of deep brotherly affection. He almost cried. "Second uncle, they're your biological sons. You can't leave them alone." Chu Feilong's face was as black as the bottom of a pot. It was so ugly that he couldn't wait to kill Chu Yang. "This bastard, you're the one who framed my sons. How dare you put on an act in front of me? Think of a way." "What fucking way can I think of? This is obviously your conspiracy. You've captured my sons and asked me to get them back. I dare to bet that I'll definitely be detained as an accomplice once I reach the law enforcement hall. Isn't this fucking delivering the goods to my doorstep? As long as you're in the way, I'm afraid that even if your grandfather goes there, it'll be useless. What other way can I think of?" The other stewards in the hall looked at each other, and their expressions were very strange. The crime of being indecent? When did the enforcers come up with such a new crime? I've never heard of it before. Using this reason to arrest two dukes of the Chu clan, one of the three big clans, is simply ridiculous. One of the stewards coughed and said, "Young Master Chu Yang, you mean the enforcer's reason for arresting the two young masters is being indecent, right?" Chu Yang said, "Yes, that's what the enforcers said." The steward snorted and said, "If that's the case, I'm puzzled. Young Master Chu Yang, you've been in the Purple Crystal's Huichun Hall for quite some time. And the drawings on the wall were also drawn by you personally, even if it's indecent. But before this, the enforcers didn't say anything about it, right?" Chu Yang said blankly, "Yes, they didn't say anything before this. This is really strange." The steward's face darkened and he said, "Then I'd like to ask, why didn't the enforcers care about this in the past? But the two young masters have only been there for a few days and the enforcers have already come? There's something very strange about this. I hope young Master Chu Yang can clear up my doubts." These words were spoken in an aggressive manner. His sharp eyes were looking at Chu Yang. The other stewards chimed in and raised their objections. Instantly, the focus of the entire hall was on Chu Yang again. Yes, young Master Chu Yang has been fined for more than a month. But the two young masters were arrested the moment they went there. And young Master Chu Yang, The main culprit wasn't even arrested. This is too strange. Young Master Chu Yang must have some explanation, right? Yes, I think there's a conspiracy in this. Under the watchful eyes of everyone, Chu Yang's face was full of doubts. He scratched his head and said, Yes, what you all said is too reasonable. Actually, I was also wondering why such a thing would happen. That's too unreasonable. What you're saying is simply right into my heart. Everyone was speechless for a moment. They looked at Chu Yang with even more ridiculousness. The steward said coldly, Could it be that young Master Chu Yang really doesn't know anything about this matter? It can be said that the law enforcement officers have never acted so strangely before. But since young Master Chu Yang came, everything has happened. This has made us think a little more. Chu Yang was stunned and said, I don't understand what you mean. The steward sneered. What I mean is very simple. Could it be that young Master Chu Yang colluded with the enforcers? Framing the two young masters would have a lot of benefits for you. Chu Yang stared blankly for a while. Then he finally flew into a rage. He was so angry that his face turned red. He felt so wronged that smoke was coming out of his 7 orifices. He angrily said, This chief steward, what are you saying? What do you mean? Am I that kind of person? Not only are you slandering me, but you're also slandering the enforcers. This is intolerable. You can say that, but show me the evidence. If you can't show me the evidence, I'll go to the enforcers and sue you for slander. The steward was stunned. He immediately avoided Chu Yang's eyes. His face turned pale, and he kept quiet out of fear. Thank you to Shizhu, Jibei Chenfeng and Tian for your gifts. Thank you to more than 20 brothers and sisters who gave me the gifts. Thank you for your subscriptions and monthly votes. Thank you. I'm in Guilin now. The scenery here is indeed very beautiful, but I'm so tired that my back hurts. Every day when I come back to the hotel, I lie down like a dead pig. This is definitely tiring work. I'll go home in a few days. During this period of time, I don't dare to go online to chat. If I do, I won't be able to complete the 2 chapters daily. But I miss you all. At #download for free, and NG. Chapter 800. Who's the shopkeeper of the Purple Crystals Huichun Hall? Xu Tinghu. Besides, Xu Tinghu is now caught by the law enforcement officers. How can I interrogate him? Do I have to go to the law enforcement hall to interrogate him? Isn't that sending myself to their doorstep? The shopkeeper's face turned red and he said, If you didn't play tricks in this matter, how can we not even earn a single purple crystal? Chu Yang felt so wrong that he couldn't say anything. He stretched out his trembling finger and pointed at the shopkeeper. He coughed continuously and gasped for breath. Divine Dr. Chu had learned from such people during this period of time. Net 7 asterisk. Then, he finally let out a sigh and rushed over. He pointed at the shopkeeper's nose and said loudly, You're insinuating that I've harmed the clan's interests. This is really the greatest shame in my life. As the saying goes, if you want to condemn someone, you can always find a pretext. It's really hard to wash away today's injustice. For my innocence and reputation, I'm going to sue you for slander. I'm going to sue you for slander to the law enforcement officers. Everyone burst into laughter. The shopkeeper's face turned white and red. He finally couldn't help but stand up and said, Am I not telling the truth? Chu Yang said angrily, You're slandering me. You're biting me without any basis. Let me tell you, when we reach the law enforcement hall, the truth will be revealed. Just you wait. Chu Xiongqing shouted, Enough. Chu Yang sat down angrily and said, Grandpa, look at what this dog slave is saying. I'm the big duke of the Chu clan, the eldest young master. It can be said that if there's no accident, no conflict between brothers, the Chu clan will be mine in the future. This dog slave actually dares to say that I've harmed the clan's interests. Why doesn't he widen his dog eyes and use his paste-like brain to think that I've harmed the clan's interests? Isn't that the same as cutting myself open? How can there be such a stupid person in the world? This dog slave obviously has ulterior motives. Grandpa, please punish him severely. Chu Xiongqing frowned and had a headache. Stop talking. Sigh. This Sun Chong was simply a hedgehog. No one could touch him. If he was right, he wouldn't forgive him. But if he was unreasonable, he would harass him. His ability to confuse right and wrong was really amazing. Everyone didn't speak, and remained silent like this. Templar. Not long after, Chu Feiling flew in. Chu Xiongqing asked anxiously, "How is it?" Chu Feilong also raised his head abruptly. Chu Feiling was carrying the bundle that he had brought out earlier. It was quite heavy inside. He shook his head and said, "Sha Xinliang didn't allow me to speak at all, nor did he accept any gifts. He just sent me back. He said that this matter was a hindrance to public morals, and had a great influence, so they had to proceed with caution. He even said that the 3 Stars Divine Clan might have bewitched his mind, and that there might be a mastermind behind it. They are currently interrogating him. I wanted to meet him, but I was rejected." Everyone was shocked. At one side, Chu Feilong's wife started to cry. Chu Feilong's face turned as white as a sheet of paper. "Interrogation?" Old Master Chu exclaimed. "How can the two of them withstand the interrogation of the law enforcement hall?" There was no need for him to say this. Everyone understood. Chu Tinghu and Chu Tingjiao had been spoiled since they were young. How could they bear the punishment? Old Master Chu stomped his feet and said, "Forget it, I'll give up this old face and go there personally. I'm afraid that even if you go there, it won't be of any use," Chu Feilong said faintly. "Then who will be of any use?" Chu Xiongqing shouted furiously. "Your son has been caught, but as a father, you're actually indifferent. You didn't even say a word from the beginning till the end. How can there be such a heartless father in the world?" Chu Feilong's face was gloomy. He lowered his head and didn't say anything. "Say it. Who will be of any use?" Old Master Chu shouted. He was really angry. Chu Yang smiled and said, "Grandpa, don't worry. Since second uncle doesn't look anxious at all, he must have a well-thought-out plan. I'm sure nothing will happen." Chu Feilong suddenly raised his head and looked at Chu Yang. He actually revealed a smile at the corner of his mouth and said, Yang is right. I do have a well-thought-out plan, because I know that you are the only one who can release my 2 sons." Chu Yang shook his head and said, "I don't have that ability. Even my father was rejected. What's the use of me going there?" Chu Feilong stared at him. He was still smiling and said, Yang, you've won. What do you want? I'll give it all to you. As long as you release your 2 brothers, it'll be fine." Chu Yang said sincerely, "I really can't do it. I can't do it no matter what you say. Even if you give me the sun, moon and stars in the sky, I still can't do it no matter what I say." Chu Feilong looked at him and said slowly, "The purple crystals Huichun Hall will only be managed by you. How about that?" Chu Yang smiled helplessly and said, "Second uncle, don't force me. I don't even know the law enforcement officers." Chu Feilong took a deep breath and said, "Restore it to its original state. From now on, it'll be your personal property. The clan won't interfere. How about that?" Chu Yang was helpless. "I'm really not familiar with the law enforcement officers." Everyone despised him. Previously, he said that he couldn't do it no matter what. When the first condition was raised, it became that he didn't even know the law enforcement officers. When the second condition was raised, it immediately became that he wasn't familiar with the law enforcement officers. You've changed your mind so quickly. Chu Feilong's eyes were like fire. He continued slowly. In the future, I'll promise you one request, no matter what it is. How about that? Chu Yang sighed. Second uncle, you're saying this as if you're the clan master. Grandpa hasn't said anything yet. Net. Chu Xiongqing sighed and said, Yang, let's just make do with it. Grandpa also agrees with what your second uncle said. Chu Yang sighed as if he was forced into a corner. He suddenly turned around and pointed at the 3 chief stewards, who were the most arrogant. He shouted angrily, What are the 3 of you muttering about? What do you mean? You dare to say that my second uncle is a fool? You're rebelling. The 3 of them were shocked and said, You, what nonsense are you talking about? When did we say that? Chu Yang shouted. You did say that. I heard it very clearly. All of you are scolding Chu Feilong for being a fool. And you're even scolding him like this. Chu Feilong is a fool. Chu Feilong is a fool. You scolded him 3 times consecutively. Chu Feilong was about to spit out a mouthful of blood. He gritted his teeth. He knew what Chu Yang meant. This was Chu Yang's last condition. Not only did he scold me in front of everyone, but he also wanted me to kill these 3 people personally. He wanted me to kill my most capable assistants personally. Chu Feilong's facial muscles twitched, and he was in great pain. These 3 people were the chief stewards of the Chu clan, other than my brothers. Back then, he had spent a lot of effort to rope him in. At the start, I relied on these 3 people to establish my position in the Chu clan. They could be said to be indispensable figures in my camp. These 3 people were not only important to me, but they had also made great contributions. If I really killed them now, it would definitely make people disappointed. You even want to kill your subordinates, who are like brothers to you. Why would you bother others? In this way, I'm afraid that the hearts of my subordinates would immediately scatter. I don't know how much effort I would have to put in to get them back together. But now, I've made a mistake and caused 2 of my sons to fall into Chu Yang's hands. They're currently being tortured. If I'm late, I'm afraid I can only collect their corpses. He couldn't help but sigh and said, "Are the 3 of you really scolding me?" The 3 of them knew that things weren't going well. They knelt down and kowtowed. Second master. We definitely didn't. How would we dare to scold you?" Chu Feilong closed his eyes and said, "The 3 of you have scolded the direct descendants of the Chu clan without any reason. You've already violated the rules of the Chu clan. You'll be demoted 3 grades, and be demoted to the chief steward of the outer hall." Chu Yang shouted, "Second uncle, they're really scolding you. I heard them scolding you like this. Chu Feilong is an idiot. Chu Feilong is an idiot. Chu Feilong is an idiot." Chu Feilong swallowed a mouthful of blood with a gulp sound. He knew that Chu Yang's words meant, "If you don't kill these 3 people, I'll kill your sons. These 3 people must die." If he accepted the 3's demotion, then he wouldn't be so noisy anymore. This was an ultimatum. The 3 of them lost their heads out of fear. They repeatedly shouted, "Second master, we really didn't scold you." The 3 of them also knew that this matter was forced by Chu Yang, but they had nothing else to say besides this sentence. Chu Yang said coldly, "Look at you. Not only did you scold me here, you might have even scolded me at home." The 3 of them were in despair. Does he want to eliminate the source of trouble? Chu Feilong stood stiffly and didn't move. The strange thing was that no one in the hall said anything. No one tried to persuade Chu Yang. They only looked at Chu Yang, and Chu Feilong standing stiffly. No one said a word. Chu Xiongqing looked at Chu Feilong with a complicated look. His expression changed, and he even held his breath. Yang Rulin grabbed Chu Feilong's arm tightly with one hand. Her breathing was a little hurried. Chu Fian looked at the hall calmly. Duan Shuyi, Chu Feilong's wife, Chu Fian's wife and other juniors sat together. They all covered their mouths with their hands subconsciously. Their eyes were full of shock. In the hall, the other stewards lowered their heads and didn't say a word. They were the ones who didn't dare to say anything. Everyone knew that if they pleaded for Chu Yang, young Master Chu would take advantage of the situation and say that they scolded Chu Feilong as an idiot. This would really cost them their lives. Whoever wanted to plead for Chu Yang could do so. After all, they were all idiots. Chu Feilong only hesitated for a moment, but Chu Yang had already added the family members of these 3 people. If it was me, everyone was silent. Not a single one of them unconsciously breathed as softly as possible. Chu Yang and Chu Feilong both stood. The 2 of them didn't say anything, but everyone knew that the deadlock between the uncle and nephew had reached the most critical moment. Chu Feilong's hands were trembling. Beads of sweat rolled down his forehead. Chapter 801. Chapter 70. I dare to swear this has nothing to do with meth. Others also shrank their necks. Damn it, this little guy is really shameless. This matter was obviously planned by you. Who couldn't tell that you're doing this purely because you're dissatisfied with your clan for depriving you of your financial resources. That's why you colluded with the law enforcement officers to do this. Now, you're actually putting on an innocent face and dismissing yourself from this matter. If I really believe you, then there's something fishy going on. However, no one dared to force him anymore. Didn't you hear what he said? He's going to sue you for slander. The law enforcement officers have already done the unprecedented crime of indecency for this little guy. What's so strange about arresting another one for slander? Which one of the stewards wasn't smart to be able to reach their current positions? Everyone knew that as long as they were arrested, even if they didn't die, they would lose a layer of skin with this little guy fanning the flames. Who dared to provoke him? Chu Xiongqing coughed and said, Chu Yang, don't be so agitated. Everyone is discussing this matter. You can say whatever you want. I also want to hear your explanation. Chu Yang was stunned and said, Grandpa, what explanation do you want to hear? Chu Xiongqing's face turned black and he said, the explanation of the law enforcement officers arresting you. Chu Yang spread out his hands and said aggrievedly, Grandpa, you're making things difficult for me. That's the law enforcement officers doing their job. How would I know any explanation? If you want to know, you're asking the wrong person. You have to ask the law enforcement officers. Everyone felt dizzy. Damn it, if we can ask the law enforcement officers, why should we ask you? A steward lowered his head and said, maybe young Master Chu Yang is very angry, because the two young masters went to the Purple Crystal's Huichun Hall. So this guy didn't dare to show his face. He hid in the crowd and spoke in a low voice. Obviously, he was afraid that Chu Yang would sue him for slander. Everyone revealed a look of it must be so. Chu Xiongqing sighed and said, Chu Yang, Grandpa knows that you've been wronged by the Purple Crystal's Huichun Hall. However, you and Teng Hu and Teng Jiao are brothers after all. What's more, with such a thing happening to the clan, there's no glory in it. In my opinion, let's not continue with this matter. Go and bring the two brothers out. Grandfather will definitely give you an explanation. How about it? It was obvious that the old master was certain that this matter was related to Chu Yang. Chu Yang said in an aggrieved manner, Grandpa, you're wrong. Even if I'm not sensible, I know that we're a clan, and blood is thicker than water. To be honest, the Purple Crystal's Huichun Hall had been taken back by the clan. After all, his grandson was still young and full of vigor. Naturally, he had some resentment in his heart. But later on, I figured it out. He raised his head and said righteously, because we are family members, we have to consider the family in everything we do. I am ready to sacrifice myself for the family at any time. For the family, I will give everything I have. The family's interests were paramount. The family's reputation was paramount. Increasing the strength of the family was the most important task at hand. We'll do everything for the family, and we'll do our best until we die. Even if it's a mountain of daggers or a sea of flames, as long as the clan needs me, I won't even frown. By the time he said this, half of the people in the hall had already fainted. Fuck, this guy really dares to say this. Look at how loyal he is. Compared to him, we're almost going to commit suicide out of shame. Chu Yang had an imposing appearance. The more he spoke, the more sonorous and impassioned his tone became. Therefore, it was the wisest decision for the Purple Crystal's Huichun Hall to take back the clan. I wholeheartedly support this decision. As for Teng Hu and Teng Jiao, just like what Grandpa said, we're brothers. Even though we're not of the same mother, blood is still thicker than water. The two of them are still young, so I should give in to them in everything. Even if I have to suffer some grievances for them, it doesn't matter. Because they're my younger brothers. I used to be all alone. Now that I have two younger brothers who are so kind and affectionate, I'm really afraid that they'll melt in my mouth and fall out of my hands. I've been so happy these few days that we've been together. We have deep brotherly affection and get along very well with each other. The two of them are like fish and water with me, and the relationship between the two of us is even deeper. Why would I set them up? I don't even have enough time to cherish them, pity them and dote on them. As young Master Chu spoke till here, everyone in the hall had already fainted. Chu Fian kept his hands in his sleeves and looked up at the sky. The muscles on his face twitched. Occasionally, he glanced sideways at Chu Feilong and gloated in his heart. You deserve it. You could have provoked anyone else. Why did you have to provoke the king of Hell Chu? Now you know how powerful he is, right? Yang Ruolan, who was originally worried, was now looking at Chu Yang, who was speaking with fervor and assurance, with a face full of shock. Oh, I'm too shocked. In my heart, My son has always been pure, kind, innocent and honest. But the image of him has collapsed in an instant. His words and actions today are actually so despicable and shameless. No, how witty and smart is he? He's so eloquent and eloquent. In the face of danger, he's actually so calm and composed. He's so reasonable. I was still worried about him previously. Now it seems that he can completely turn danger into safety with his own abilities. The heavens have really blessed my son with such a smart brain. I'm not worried about him at all now. Instead, I'm worried about Chu Feilong. You're unlucky to have provoked my son. From what I see, you Chu Feilong aren't as thick-skinned as my son. Chu Xiongqing fainted for a while before he asked with a black face. You mean this matter has nothing to do with you? Chu Yang said seriously. I dare to point to heaven and earth and swear by the calamity sword that it has absolutely nothing to do with me. If it has anything to do with me, then let the calamity sword pierce through me 10,000 times. The calamity sword was the #1 divine item in the heavens. Swearing by the calamity sword was the most important oath in the upper 3 heavens. Once the sentence was said, Chu Xiongqing immediately stopped talking. Everyone also stopped talking. Chu Yang had already sworn by the calamity sword. What else was there to say? Did he have to force Chu Yang to his death? Chu Yang's face was serious and solemn. He was proud in his heart. Let the calamity sword pierce through me 10,000 times? Does it dare to do so? I'm the sword master. Yang Rulan said anxiously. This child, what are you saying? If he didn't do it, he didn't do it. There's no need to swear such a heavy oath. As she said, she clasped her hands together and prayed silently. Obviously, she was praying for her son. Then, she opened her eyes and said, Father, since Yang said so, there's no doubt that this matter has nothing to do with him. Chu Xiongqing sighed and said, You're right. It's just that this matter is really giving me a headache. He frowned and said, Why did the law enforcement officers suddenly deal with Tenghu and Tingjiao? This matter is truly perplexing. Chu Yang continued, Yes, I've thought about this matter for a long time. These law enforcement officers are really too unreasonable. If they want to arrest someone, they should arrest me. How can they arrest my brother? These law enforcement officers do things incoherently. I'm so angry. Cough, 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 cough. Cough, cough, cough. Chu Fian, who was at one side, suddenly choked and coughed violently. Oh my God, I can't help it. Everyone also started to talk about it. Chu Feilong's face was still black, and he didn't say a word. Everyone, what do you think we should do about this matter? Chu Xiongqing asked. I think that the law enforcement officers' repeated big actions during this period of time are probably to establish their authority. A chief steward, who had never spoken before, said, Since this is the case, as long as the Chu clan's attitude is lower, and we pay some purple crystals, we can bring the 2 young masters back. Chu Xiongqing nodded and said, Then who should do this? Everyone lowered their heads, especially those on Chu Feilong's side. They almost stuffed their heads into their trousers. Everyone knew that anyone else could do it, except for them. As long as they went, they wouldn't be able to return. There was an awkward silence. After a long while, Chu Feilong finally took a step forward and said, Father, I think that if Big Brother goes, it'll be successful. Chu Yang scolded in his heart. You want to use my father to pressure me? Let's wait and see. Chu Xiongqing said, Failing, what do you think about this matter? Chu Failing said, Since this is the case, I'll go. Chu Xiongqing nodded. All right. The clan will prepare 300 purple crystals. What do you think? It should be enough. If the law enforcement officers are just showing their attitude, they won't make things too difficult for us. After all, the Chu clan still has some influence in the flat mountain ridge, Chu Failing said. All right, go and come back quickly. I'll wait for your news here. Chu Xiongqing waved his hand. Chu Failing left. Chu Yang sat beside his mother. Everyone was waiting with heavy expressions. After all, it wasn't a good thing for the 2 young masters of the clan to be detained. The atmosphere was very tense. Chu Feilong looked at Chu Yang with hatred in his eyes, but he didn't say a word. After a long while, the chief steward suddenly said, Speaking of purple crystals, I thought of something. Young Master Chu Yang was originally in charge of the Purple Crystal's Huichun Hall, and it could be said to be a golden mountain. Now, after the two young masters went there, I heard that they didn't make any progress. Young Master Chu Yang didn't cure anyone. I wonder why. Chu Yang sat beside his mother and said peacefully, "How can there be a divine doctor who can cure all diseases? This chief steward, could it be that you've seen such a divine doctor? If that's the case, please point it out. I'll quickly go and learn from him." The chief steward snorted and said, "There isn't a divine doctor who can cure all diseases. But young Master Chu Yang cured so many people previously. You can't possibly not cure any of them, right? There's obviously something fishy going on." Chu Yang was furious. He stood up and said, "Why don't you go and take a look? What's the point of chattering here? I don't have that ability. You can find someone else." The chief steward was also angered by him. He said coldly, "The Purple Crystal's Huichun Hall is the clan's business. It's supposed to earn purple crystals for the clan. Now it can't even earn a single purple crystal. What's the use of it?" Chu Yang crossed his legs and said calmly, "This is the problem of management. But I'm not responsible for this. I'm only the chief physician. I'm only responsible for treating patients, not management. Regarding this problem, you should ask the chief steward of the Purple Crystal's Huichun Hall." Chapter 802. Chapter 78. I'm really not showing off after gaining benefits. Chu Feilong looked into Chu Yang's eyes. Chu Yang's eyes were full of calmness and laughter. He was looking at him quietly, and was not affected by the atmosphere in the hall at all. It was as if he was saying, "If you don't kill them, I will kill your son. Don't worry, I'm definitely willing to do so." Chu Feilong clearly realized that in the depths of Chu Yang's eyes, there was a blatant and undisguised cruelty, like that of a vulture in the desert. That was clearly a terrifying killing intent, and an unchangeable determination. The two of them were in a stalemate for a long time. Suddenly, Chu Yang smiled and turned his head away. He said softly, "There's no other way. Second uncle, you're swallowing your anger. I can't bear to see you like this. Let's go back and sleep." Chu Feilong's wife cried out, "Feilong, you're doing this for our son." Chu Feilong's body trembled violently. He turned his head, and saw that his wife's face was full of tears. Footsteps sounded beside him. Chu Yang was about to walk out of the hall. His footsteps were steady, and he was going forward without looking back. His footsteps were light, and his body was straight. He showed his unchangeable determination. Chu Feilong gritted his teeth, and made up his mind. He suddenly roared, "You three bastards, how dare you scold me?" He raised his hand and slapped down. The three of them were kneeling on the ground and fighting. When they heard this roar, they immediately felt hopeless. They shouted, "Chu Feilong, you!" But since Chu Feilong had decided to kill them, how could he give them a chance to speak? He slapped them 3 times consecutively. Pa, pa, pa. The 3 heads became like rotten watermelons at the same time. The corpses of the 3 people slowly fell to the ground. Fresh blood flowed out quietly, and formed a pool on the ground. It slowly flowed to Chu Feilong's feet, soaking both his feet and his shoes in it. The hall was dead silent. Chu Feilong's body trembled. He raised his head and closed his eyes. He shouted loudly, "Chu Yang, are you satisfied?" Chu Yang had already walked to the door. He slowly turned around as he heard these words. Then he said in amazement, "Second uncle, they scolded you. It's fine if you reprimanded them. But why did you kill them? You don't you think it's too cruel?" Chu Feilong cried out, and spat out a mouthful of blood. His chest heaved up and down. Chu Yang said, "Besides, it's fine if you kill them. After all, they were the ones who scolded you first. It's only right that you kill them. But what does it have to do with me? Why should I say that I'm satisfied?" Chu Feilong closed his eyes, and the muscles on his cheeks trembled. He used all of his cultivation to prevent himself from exploding. He said in a hoarse voice, "This matter indeed has nothing to do with you." "That's right, second uncle." Chu Yang said with concern, "Second uncle, since you've killed them, you must be careful. You must know that when you're cutting weeds, you must dig up the roots." When these words came out, everyone's heart trembled, and their hearts turned cold. Not only did he force Chu Feilong to kill, but he also didn't let off the 3 people who were killed. So vicious. Chu Feilong couldn't help but say angrily, Yang Yang, you fool. Yang Ruolin pinched him harshly and whispered, You're a one-track-minded fool. Can't you tell? Chu Feilong sent a telepathic message in confusion. What did you see? Yang Ruolin sighed. Can't you tell Yang Yang's true intentions? Even father, who has such a bad temper, didn't say anything. Why are you shouting? Chu Feilong turned his head to look at Chu Xiongcheng. Indeed, he saw his father frowning and looking at the bloodstains in the hall silently. He frowned and thought for a while. Finally he said, Why? Yang Ruolin was completely speechless. She could only helplessly whisper. On the surface, it seems that Yang Yang is too cruel. But this is the last chance that Yang Yang left for Chu Feilong. Do you really think that Yang Yang only wanted to vent his anger? Do you understand how much grievance Yang Yang had to endure to do this? Yang Yang clipped Chu Feilong's wings and damaged Chu Feilong's prestige. She scattered the hearts of Chu Feilong's people, causing the forces that Chu Feilong had painstakingly built over the years to become suspicious and unstable. This caused Chu Feilong to be temporarily unable to do anything. If Chu Feilong could retreat at this time, wouldn't it be a great thing for the Chu clan? If we were to stand in Yang Yang's position, who caused him to lead a wandering life for 18 years, who caused us to be separated from our family, who caused him to suffer so much torture, isn't it all Chu Feilong? Does Yang Yang want to let him off so easily? Doesn't Yang Yang feel wronged? Yang Yang is doing this for you and father, isn't it? Isn't it so that you won't have to feel guilty and regret for your whole lives because of your brothers? What a fool. Chu Feilong wasn't stupid. After thinking for a while, he finally understood. I see. Chu Feilong stood there in a daze. He knew that with the death of these 3 people, half of the empire that he had painstakingly built had collapsed. It was inevitable that people would be separated. If he killed the family members of these 3 people, then it would be equivalent to half of the empire collapsing. Who would work for so unfeeling a master? What if I offend Chu Yang one day, and he does the same thing again? Wouldn't my wife and child be done for? However, things had already come to this point. There was no turning back. If he turned back now, those 3 people couldn't be resurrected. His son would still die. Chu Feilong's lips trembled and he muttered, Yes, to cut the weeds we still have to remove the roots. After he said this, everyone's heart became even colder. Chu Yang clapped his hands and laughed. Second uncle is indeed second uncle. As expected of a hero of a generation, he is able to let go of things easily. Are you satisfied? Chu Feilong stared at him. His face seemed to have aged by more than 10 years at this moment. His eyes were also bloodshot. What satisfied? Chu Yang opened his mouth and eyes wide. Second uncle, I don't understand what you're saying. Please say it more clearly. Okay. Chu Feilong knew that Chu Yang wanted him to repeat his conditions. Chu Feilong gritted his teeth, but he was still helpless. He said, The purple crystals Huichun Hall is still yours. The clan won't interfere. You don't have to hand over the purple crystals. I'll withdraw everyone. I'll agree to one of your requests. How about that? Chu Yang said shyly. How can I? Chu Feilong spat out another mouthful of blood. It was originally yours, and it's still yours now. What's there to be embarrassed about? Chu Yang said. But I don't feel right. That would make me seem too selfish. Chu Feilong closed his eyes tightly and said in a hoarse voice, as if he was about to cry, Take it that I'm begging you to accept it. In his whole life, when had he been forced to such a state? Chu Feilong even felt like dying. Chu Yang panicked and said, Second uncle, don't be like this. What do you want me to do? How can I take it? Sigh, since you're begging me, I'll be disrespecting you if I don't accept it. For you I can only accept it. Everyone be a witness. The purple crystals Huichun Hall has already returned to the clan, and I didn't say anything about it. But now that you insist on giving it to me, I really can't do anything about it. I really didn't ask for it. Everyone heard it, right? Chu Yang sighed and said it very unwillingly. At the end he actually said, Everyone don't misunderstand. I'm really not pretending to be obedient. Everyone felt that they were about to spit out blood. Even young Ruolan felt that she was about to spit out blood. Aren't you still pretending to be obedient? You've already done it to the extreme. Since this is the case, I've already received your kind intentions. Then, what about your two younger brothers? Chu Feilong's chest heaved up and down, and he felt that his heart was about to explode. Second uncle, don't worry. I'll go and risk my life. Sigh, actually, you're not the only one who's distressed. I'm also distressed. Tenghu and Tengjiao are my brothers. If the law enforcement officers don't release them, I'll bang my head against the wall and die there. I don't believe that there's no place in this world where I can seek justice. Chu Yang said furiously. I'll threaten them with my life. I don't believe that I can't save my two dear younger brothers. Chu Yang turned around and left, saying, I'll go now. Before he left, he turned around and winked at his mother. Then he winked again and again. Then, he glanced at his father before he turned around and left. Young Ruolan's eyes brightened. Seeing his figure disappear outside the door, Chu Feilong's body trembled and his eyes turned red. Finally, he squatted down and stretched out his hands, as if he wanted to grab something. But after all, he didn't reach out completely. Then, he retracted his hands and covered his face. Chu Xiongcheng sighed deeply and said, Feilong. Chu Feilong shouted and stood up suddenly. He spat out 3 mouthfuls of blood. Then, he closed his eyes and his strong body fell backward. The entire hall of the Chu clan was silent. Today's matter had shaken everyone to the core. Chu Feilong had planned meticulously. He had mobilized his many years of resources to oppress the clan. He had used the power of the entire clan to oppress Chu Yang, who had just arrived at the Chu clan. However, it was directly destroyed by the other party in an extremely barbaric and unreasonable manner, as if a mountain was pressing down on it. Chu Feilong had planned meticulously to deal with Chu Yang. Step by step, he had gradually forced Chu Yang into a dead end. He had deprived Chu Yang of his rights and wealth. However, Chu Yang's methods were even more dazzling to the eyes and making everyone feel cold in their stomachs. There was only one word to describe it: terrifying. It was really too terrifying. Chu Yang didn't care about Chu Feilong's conspiracy. He didn't even take Chu Feilong's attacks. But his methods were more violent and direct. You're forcing me? All right. Then I'll catch you. And I'll make up an excuse to let your 2 subordinates in without any reason. And you don't dare to go and ask for them. If you go, I'll catch you too. You can only come and beg me. But if you come and beg me, I'll make you spit out everything that you've taken. Not only that, I'll make things worse. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.